34. We got a full panel for you guys today. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves and what have we been playing lately. We'll just start immediately to my left and your guys' right. Favlam. There, I said it right this time. How's it going, buddy? What have you been playing lately?
Hi, how's it going? My name is Favlam, or you can call me Austin, either or. I'm a Twitch streamer. Lots of variety, Nintendo content, game shows, all that jazz. What I have been playing recently is Pokemon Go, because I was recently at Pokemon Go Fest in New York. So I went to Pokemon Go Fest over the weekend, and it was a ton of fun. Had a lot of good times. Met a bunch of cool people. It's like going to a con. You meet all the people you don't see, but all your online friends, and hang out and do all that. It was really cool how they did it when you're playing on the Pogo app. Through the city, it's like increased odds and like rates of spawning and stuff. So there's like a really good shiny hunting thing for it. It was like $10 for this pass for the weekend. And then on the actual day that you go to like Randall's Island or Randall's Park, I think it's what it's called. And like the second, like literally at 3:00, that the event's supposed to start, your phone just like explodes with like Pokestops and spawns and gyms and events and all this stuff. And then of course they have a lot of like practical set pieces like on the park itself. There was like a volcano and trees and tents, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat. I recommend going. It's a really cheap event to go to. Like, again, $10. Like, you can't beat that. It's just be ready to walk. You're gonna walk a ton. So anyways, that's what I've been up to.
Nice, man. Nice. Andres Restart, how's it going, buddy? What have you been playing?
I'm okay. I have not been canceled. So that's
good. You were telling me you're still worried about it. I'm like, I think you're a small enough channel yet that you're not going to get enough attention.
Maybe I was just overthinking how much people would care about the topic. But
we'll get into that topic deep today. So
we'll talk. But maybe this podcast will get canceled. But
I'll be the one that gets canceled. Right? It'll be me.
Yeah. But outside of non-controversial topics, I've been playing Pokemon Stadium 2. Yeah. That's been fun. And surprisingly challenging. Like it's the AI in Pokemon Stadium 2 is better than the AI in the mainline Pokemon games now. Like, they actually react to your Pokemon. Like, so sometimes when you're playing, let's say Scarlet and Violet, like you're fighting like maybe a late game gym leader or Elite Four member, they will switch, but like once or twice, just to show you, oh yeah, we're gonna react to you. But like if you play Pokemon Stadium 2 and you're halfway through the actual like challenge, they're going to continue to switch. Oh, they have a Steelix out and you have a water type? Nope. They're going to continue to switch. They're not going to just let you blast it with a Hydro Pump. Like, they're actually going to react to you consistently as if you were fighting a real trainer. So I'm not saying it's like masterfully amazing AI, like it's as good as like competitive Pokemon, but it's enough to the point where it's actually pretty tough, and you're going to lose a few times. So it's good. I love it.
Awesome. Sorry, swapping spots there since I see the way your head is looking. I'm like, let's have you not look off of the video. No, dude. So in Pokemon Stadium 2, can you actually beat it? Because people were saying that it might be impossible to beat since you can't import Pokemon. So
I'm just trolling you. I switched to the other monitor to bother you.
Yeah. I knew you were
good.
Purpose.
We're good. Say that again.
Can you beat Pokemon Stadium 2? I haven't tried it, but a lot of people said it's not beatable. The main stadium.
Oh well, I haven't beaten it yet, so can't confirm.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who said it wasn't beatable because it's not beatable with the Pokemon included.
It is tough. I'll tell you that. It is tough. I just beat Claire. So I beat Claire, which was I lost a couple of times, and I went through the Elite Four, and I got I only tried once, and so you have to do the Elite Four all in one shot, and they're 3v3 battles, right? So like you can't bring in 6, and because the thing about doing a 6v6 battle is you can account for some error or mistake or bad luck because you have all their types you can fall back on, right? There's more opportunity to resolve issues. But when it's 3v3, if you pick the wrong 3, sometimes you just kind of SOL. So yeah, 3v3 is harder because there's more luck involved and it doesn't always go in your favor. And I did pretty well against the first 3 of the 4 Elite Four members, but that last one only using rental Pokemon because I was playing on it, so there is no transfer pack available yet. I lost. I don't even remember how I lost. It felt impossible, though. I'll tell you that. But I think if I just went in with a slightly different Pokemon, it might work out. I also had bad luck. She just used Confused Ray every time, and I just kept hurting myself in confusion. Like, so there was a lot of bad luck. But
I remember that one back in the day.
yeah,
Lots of Confused Rays.
If Stadium 2 works anyway, how some of the battle towers or whatever is like the battle tower equivalent for Pokemon games is nowadays, where as you progress, the hacks gets worse. So like when you're playing against the computers, like you're more likely to miss. You're more likely to get hit by a critical hit. So if it works anything like that, where I'm basically just guaranteed to like hurt myself in confusion 3 out of 4 times, then I can see how people might think it's impossible. I don't know if it's impossible, but I don't know.
It's a lot harder, anyways.
Maybe during my vacation coming up, I'll play Pokemon Stadium 2 instead of 100%ing Tears of the Kingdom. We'll see.
Nice. Well, since we saw spots, Nick with no K, how's it going? What have you been playing lately?
It's going good. This week was a little rough because our AC went out, so we spent like 2 days without AC, and it was like 90 degrees. It was not great. But other than that, I have been playing a ton of Fortnite because I decided to get the battle pass like a week before it ends and swaps out, and I think I went from level 20 to 105 in 2 days. So I was really grinding out the battle pass. Other than that, I got nothing. That's all I've been playing. I really
How many victory royales?
5 or 6.
Yeah, Fortnite.
Okay.
About to get down,
Okay.
get down.
I'm pretty decent at solos, but I know I'm gonna suck again because every time the season restarts, they add new guns and the loot pool changes, and then I suck because I'm not used to it yet. I do want to go back to Zelda eventually. Only, not like it's my favorite game of all time and most anticipated game of the year. And here I am playing Fortnite, so I'll get back to it eventually.
We all need a break. I don't know that I'd choose Fortnite for that, but we all have our games that we play. I mean, Zach over there likes to play a little mobile game, a little well-known mobile game at this point. So yeah, you just say we all got a little. I mean, look, I play Madden. Come on, like we all have that game that everyone's gonna look like. Really, that's what you're playing? Yeah.
I will say I watched the new trailer they put out for Persona 3 Reload, and every time I see a new trailer, teeters me just a little closer to buying an Xbox. And I'm like, I'm really thinking about it. We'll see how I feel in February. Whether or not we'll see where the Switch 2 rumors are at by then.
Is it not on
think
PC?
they just said at Gamescom that like they have like 80 something games dropping in like the next 4 years. I'm like, really? You might be exaggerating, but I would love to actually see all these studios you bought put some games out. That'd be great. Yes, thank you very much. Eric, welcome back after a couple weeks.
Yeah,
and then a couple weeks before that one.
Welcome back.
It's been like 2 of the last 7 shows.
I know.
How you doing, bud?
Well, the last 2 were not for good reason.
Happens. Yep.
My grandma did pass away a couple weeks ago, so that is why I missed the last 2 weeks. She passed away Tuesday 2 weeks ago, and then so I just was not in the right mindset to take that next podcast, and then the funeral was that next Wednesday, so this last Wednesday. So yeah, that's where I've been. Yeah, it's been a long 2 weeks, but glad to be back and actually, focusing on other things and, trying to get back to life. But
you play any games?
Not in the last 2 weeks, but before
except Madden.
Well, besides Madden.
I won the Super Bowl today against them.
Yeah.
Just want everyone to know.
Right.
Of course, he beat me last week in the Super Bowl.
I did. No, but before all this happened, I did complete all of the tiers and I got the Master Sword. And let me just say, holy balls, that
pretty crazy.
That story is crazy. Crazy
good story.
So that's where I'm at with that.
More to come. You don't even know. There's so much more to come with that story. It's great.
Looking forward to it though.
All right. Let's see. You guys know who I am at this point because it's my podcast. But if you don't, I'm the Nintendo Prime, Nate from Nintendo Prime.
And don't forget Zach.
I was about to say, am I crazy?
We'll get to Zach. We'll get to Zach.
Okay.
Oh,
I was saving it. I was saving the best for last.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I'm not
Usually
the
you
best.
go.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Look, when Zach's on the show, I'm instantly like down a few notches.
All right.
No, but I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom again. I got back into it because I'm, when I'm laying in bed and my fiance is just sitting there playing it herself on the TV in the room, and I got to sit there and watch while I'm messing with my phone. At some point, you're like, no, I want to. Okay, I'm gonna go grab my Switch. I'm just gonna play, not look at what you're doing because it's making me want to do things. Because she's even finding things I haven't found in the game yet. So I'm like, nope, time to grab my Switch and play. So I've actually put a lot of time into Tears of the Kingdom last week, which is nice. I've already beaten it, but the main story, anyways. But there's so much to do in the game, so there's a lot I still have to discover and do. And I still haven't taken out a King Leok yet, so like that's on my to-do agenda is to go take one of them out. So I'm really excited about that. Hopefully, I get that done in the next week. And then I've been playing Madden 24. It came out last week. So for those who don't know, that's kind of one of my hitches. I play in Madden leagues. So and that's pretty much it. Let's get to the best for last. Zach from Switchforce, welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Woo! Yeah, I've been playing Marvel Snap as you alluded to, but I don't even consider that at this point. I played a bunch of I moonlight working for Ascendant Studios on their PR team, so I have been playing Immortals of Avium, which launched yesterday. Really think they turned out a great product there. On Switch, though, I've been playing Blasphemous 2, which I'm really enjoying. Every once in a while, you need to play one of those side-scrolling pixel art Metroidvanias with beautiful animation, and they did a really nice job with the difficulty curve. Still have some real strange, weird, religious blood torture storyline going on, but I feel like it's a little reduced, and the gameplay is just real crispy. It feels really good to play. Like I said, the animations are great, and the difficulty curve is just perfect. It's not like, oh, die, come back, die, come back, die, come back. It's just master the patterns, move forward, and that's the kind of difficulty I like, where it's not frustrating, but it still is a challenge. You still feel that sense of, beat the boss, but you're not Dark Souls, Elden Ringing it up for, hours and hours and hours. So that one's out tomorrow, I believe. And I highly recommend it. I think it's a pretty good improvement over the first game and well worth the $30.
Nice. And I'm so glad you brought up Immortals because it actually reviewed pretty well. And
it did.
I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, don't I know somebody who worked on that game? And I'm like, oh, right. So you've mentioned it in your videos before. I was like, oh, dang. All right. Now I definitely am picking it up this week.
It's really fun. The reviews it got a bunch of 8s, some 9s, and then a 4 and a 5, which
yeah,
thought 4s and 5s were reserved for games that are
like you can't play a broken.
But, okay, no, I think it's a really fun shooter. It's basically Doctor Strange first person with kind of Call of Duty pacing, and I've loved the gameplay since I first started playing it over a year ago, and it just feels great. Like the magic spells are really fun.
Nice. All right. We're going to just hit up some quick news quick. This is stuff that we don't really have topics for, but, Gamescom's going on. There's all this stuff. So a whole bunch of different announcements have come out specifically with release dates. A few new game announcements, more like old games coming back announcements, what happens. So first off, Turok 3 is coming to Nintendo Switch and other platforms this November. Don't have an exact date yet, but it's coming. SteamWorld Build finally got its release date for Nintendo Switch on December 1st. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster was announced for Switch, but no dates. Sonic Frontiers, The Final Horizon, is getting a free update on September 28th. It's brand new story and ability to play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, and what they are calling a climactic free update. So should be pretty exciting there. Not the only Sonic news we got, because we finally know when Sonic Superstars is coming. That's one people are probably pretty excited for. Brand new Sonic game coming out. Looks really good. It's coming out October 17th. Pretty interesting. 3 days before Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2. Maybe they're trying to give you just enough time to finish it before the big hitters.
It's going to be a wild month, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
It's going to be wild. Also, supposedly the OG design for Sonic or something might be playable. So that's a little bunny ear, weird looking thing that they never actually released a game for. So pretty interesting. We now know when the Game Awards is happening. Surprise, surprise. First week of December 7th. So
Tears of the Kingdom Sweet, baby.
we'll see.
I'm gonna keep it real. With Baldur's Gate, that's one I thought Tears of the Kingdom was it, but Baldur's Gate, man, is pretty freaking.
They
good.
delivered.
It's got some crazy depth to that game. Yeah. Anyways, sorry, just had to.
No, it's a 2-horse race, and we'll see if we'll see if a certain star game can add to it. We'll see.
I hope they do.
Gamers win if it does. So
exactly, yeah.
Let's see here. Next, we have the Metal Gear Volume Collection thingy. Look, it's not really much of an update. It's just we now know that it runs at 720p and 1080p on Switch at 30 FPS. And the only reason that's notable is it upset a lot of people because this isn't a remaster. And all these games were on worse hardware than Switch and ran at 60 FPS on that hardware. So for some reason, the Switch, despite being more powerful than the platforms all these games originally debuted on, is getting a half-cut frame rate version, which makes no sense. It just sounds like we didn't put in a lot of work on it. We just slapped it on. It wasn't running well, so we cut it to 30. They didn't really want to optimize. That's what it sounds like to me, because it's 60 FPS on all the other hardware, of course. So I don't really get it, and I understand people's frustrations that better hardware than what it originally released on somehow has worse frame rate when it's not a remaster. I don't get it, but I understand why people are upset about it and don't think it's okay. So if you end up skipping it and get it on another system, or you skip it altogether because it's Konami, I get it. Konami hasn't always been friendly over the last decade or so. So we'll see. Unless you like their pachinko machines, then they love you.
Dude, they even hate Yu-Gi-Oh. Like Yu-Gi-Oh World Championships, they had like it looked like a locals. They had like fold out tables and they gave them like paper mats. It was awful.
Sure. And I don't know why I wrote Switch 2. Because I've been doing so much Switch 2 stuff. I don't know why that's the Switch remains the second best-selling console in the month of July. It's actually down a little bit year over year. But according to the exact people who have access to the exact data, it was actually extremely close to the PlayStation 5 in terms of unit sales, and well ahead of the Xbox Series, which wasn't a surprise. Xbox, I'm sorry, Microsoft, you always find yourself in third place. Get some games out there. You got one coming. How many more? Anyways, there's nothing really that notable for game sales that's really surprising. It just Remnant 2, which launched, is the overall best-selling game in July. So that's sort of all of the little quick news that we wanted to get to before we get to the big stories. And of course, for us in Nintendo land, there's one story above them all. A legendary maestro of the microphone that has been giving us oral bliss for 27 years.
I don't like that. I don't like the phrase that you just used.
Okay.
Oral bliss.
Hey, look. When Mario 64 popped up and I heard the first Wahoo, I'm just saying, I was in heaven in that moment as I was messing with his face. Anyways, so I'm sure you guys have heard, but we're going to talk about it. Charles Martinet is no longer the voice actor for anything at Nintendo as far as we're aware. Maybe the movie still will see it. Officially, it just said he stepped down with video games. So no longer the voice of Mario and Luigi and Wario and all of the rest. He is now moved on to a new role as a Mario ambassador, which basically means he's still going to travel around the world to various conventions and market and advertise Mario for Nintendo, which is pretty much what I think he kind of does most of the time anyways. If you ever follow him on social media and follow the different conferences, he's always at them all the time, signing autographs, talking to fans, and talking about Mario. So he's pretty much just going to continue to do that. He just won't be put into an audio booth. I believe Charles Martinet, I heard on a podcast, had a lifetime contract with Nintendo. So this is sort of like repurposing his role in the company and also obviously moving Mario into a new direction. But we'll talk about that in a moment. First, I just want to just ask the panel here, like, what does Charles Martinet mean to you guys? Because, I mean, for all of us, he's been involved in a majority of our lives in some way if we've been playing Mario at all. Let alone the Luigi's Mansion series and so many great games that he's been the voice behind, including that infamous call GameStop for your pre-order checkup. That was anyone who did that back. Oh my gosh, it was like 2 straight minutes of him talking like Mario.
That's so funny.
It's a little much. It's a little much. Anyways, first off, before we get into any of the possible criticisms out there, how do you guys feeling about Charles Martinet in general and just his iconic career, especially behind the voice of Mario himself?
I mean, I think, everyone's got to retire, right? And I think this is kind of his like retirement lap, in my opinion. I mean, I know there's people that are out there like, oh, he said he was gonna do it forever, blah, blah, blah. But I think bro's tired. He's an elderly man, and he's put the work in. So I think he's doing great, and I think this is a great exit for him, and I think it's a good way to just still be a part of it, but also not at the same time, and just kind of enjoy his golden years and end of his career. So I don't know. I think it's a very fitting end, and I wouldn't want to see it any other way.
I don't think I actually realized how many different voices he did until this week. Like, I knew he was Mario and Luigi, but I didn't know he also did like Wario and Waluigi. I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't assume, but it's one of those things. Like Austin said, everyone's gotta retire at some point. We all knew this was coming, inevitably. Like, we were gonna get this news now, or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, is going to come eventually. And I think it's good that it came this way, as like, hey, he's stepping down of his own volition. Like, this was his choice. We respect that choice, rather than it being like, well, Charles Martinet is no longer with us, so therefore we now have to replace Mario. So it kind of like ends on a much, I guess, happier note than something like that. Yeah. And I don't know. I respect the work he did. I respect the talent it takes to do 4 different characters and make them sound the same but different. And I respect that.
Nice. Eric.
Yeah. I mean, just growing up playing hours upon hours of Mario 64, that was my whole entire childhood, basically. I mean, so it's sad that he's stepping away, but also interesting to see kind of where things are going to go from here. Wish him all the best, for sure. Hopefully he enjoys what he's doing and everything like that. So that's kind of all I'm good with, and so it's sad, but it's got to happen.
All right, Zach, what's he mean to anybody?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic guy, fantastic memories. I think it's a cool testament that someone can be so beloved by saying so little. Like his actual script is probably can fit on a half of a page or something. I think that's pretty remarkable that it was that impactful or that memorable for so many, kids and now adults. That just goes to show that it's a joyful dude who really imparted his enthusiasm into the game. But yeah, I am curious to see where they go from here now that Mario has been individualized as, Chris Pratt in the movie. How many liberties does Nintendo take going forward to make Mario have more of a role in the, in the games that he's the lead character for?
Yeah. All right, Andres. What's he mean to you? And then we can use you to springboard into the zaniness of what the internet's doing. You're muted. Gotcha, bud.
Yeah.
You're muted on the application. I mean, I can unmute you too.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. But thanks for telling me that.
No problem.
Would have been kind of awkward otherwise. But yeah, Charles Martinet, what he means for me. Well, I mean, I've been playing Mario games since I was a little kid. Like, my first personal game that I played was Super Mario 64. Like, that was my first game. And so, the first character I fell in love with, the first world I fell in love with was that. And it was voiced by Charles. So, he's kind of had an importance for me since then, right? And he's been the voice of Mario. And Mario is one of my favorite characters from my favorite series. So it's absolutely a big deal. And yeah, so, I mean, he's definitely been very significant. And all the stories I've heard about Charles are really wonderful stories. I think everything I hear about this person is he was very, very humble. He was never like this high and mighty person, even though he's the voice for one of the most iconic characters of all time, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. But he's always been super, super humble, and has always been a very fun person to interact with, when I've heard. And he's just kind of like the ideal sort of, I guess, icon, if that's what you want to call it, right? So it's incredible. And the fact that he has been the voice actor for several Mario characters for 3 decades. That's just insane. So, he's had an incredible career, and he's absolutely left an incredible impact on not just the gaming world, but I would say just like society as a whole, because Mario is a pretty big deal. So it's special.
Yeah, like Charles Martinet, I liken him to sort of being like almost the voice of my childhood as a gamer. When I think back on all of the games I played growing up, I don't know many of the voice actors because the voices that they portrayed in a lot of that stuff didn't stand out to me. The things I think of are usually from movies and or animated series or something like that. But when I'm thinking of video games, just from my younger years before I got older, started paying a bit more attention, I know who Charles Martinet was by like the year 2000, and that's insane. That I know who the voice of this Mario guy is when we're still getting all of our information from Nintendo Power magazines, and it's insane that he's been doing it for as long as he has and been so consistently great at it. And there are times that he has a bit more, like when he's doing Luigi's Mansion. Luigi suddenly has a hell of a lot more lines than he usually does, and he's got to portray Luigi and add more personality to him than usual. And it's all the spin-offs and all the side games. He's the voice in all of those. Any new sound effects in Mario Kart that weren't in the Mario games, he had to do those. And it's kind of crazy that for characters that say so little, he still became so iconic for what he was able to do. And I mean, look, this is why people were initially upset when he wasn't the voice of Mario in the Mario movies, because he's been the voice for 30 years. How do you not have him voice Mario? And it's because Mario has never really spoken 100% complete sentences in most of the stuff that he's done. A little bit back in Mario was typing, but we're not going to go back to those days. Those some interesting games back then. So this kind of gets into the conversation then about there are segments of the internet that don't think this is as kosher as it appears. And I think a lot of it might just have to do with people wanting to always paint Nintendo as a big evil corporation that doesn't care about anybody but themselves, which is totally probably true in some regards. Like every big corporation that's for profits on some level, they care about the bottom line more than much. But I do think that it's a little unfair the way that some of this is being painted, where Nintendo maybe forced him out. And we'll never know. I don't think there'll ever be anything said publicly by Nintendo or Charles to make that a thought that people should hold on to. Charles' reaction to this was, as you would expect, happy as can be and super excited for his new role, which obviously he knew the announcement was coming before it happened. So it wasn't like it took him, he wasn't one of those people that found out he was fired on Twitter. We've had that happen at some companies. That's not how this went down. He knew what was coming, and Nintendo is doing a video, with him and Miyamoto later to even not just have this announcement, but maybe have a closure to it with the creator of Mario, which is to me showing deep respect for who Charles was and has meant to so many out there as the voice. So I just don't know that I agree with this notion that he's being forced out. And I think it actually started with the Mario movie. I think that's really what got the ball rolling, with people being like, oh, he's not the voice of Mario. They wanted to go with someone famous. And I don't really know where it comes from, especially when, like, Andres, you had a quote from him, because he said 2 quotes a couple of years ago. One was the one that everyone knows: "I want to voice Mario till the day I die." Okay,
right.
But what was that second quote? Because people don't always follow.
Sure, I was actually thinking about pulling it up because I felt like maybe reading it verbatim here.
Yeah,
hold on.
There's a second quote he said in the exact same.
So so there were a couple of years ago. He was at a gaming and comics expo in Canada. I was going to say Canada. I'm sorry for everyone in Canada. I just say that sometimes. But anyways, so that he was doing a Q&A with the audience, and he said, "I want to voice Mario until I drop dead." And that's what a lot of people have been kind of pointing to. Is like, see, Nintendo did something to him, because he said he wants to do this until he dies. But this is ignoring the possibility that things can change, right? Like what you say or think one day can at some point change.
And just because he wants to voice it till the day he dies doesn't mean that he wants to just continue working till the day he dies. You know, it's
right.
He may want to voice it, but the fact that maybe something changed and he can't anymore or something, you know, or there's that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
I
would
to
say
interrupt, but
maybe-
that gets to the
yeah.
quote
Yeah.
that he also
Yeah.
said that people are ignoring.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is yeah, exactly. So people will just point to that piece of detail and don't ignore the other thing that came out around that time, and that is that he said, if someday I think I am no longer capable of doing it, I will tell Nintendo to look into finding someone else. So for me, right, and I don't want to really dive too much into speculating why he possibly may have made this decision himself, right? But he is 67 years old, right? And if it is health related, I kind of find this whole conversation about Nintendo being this evil, nefarious company that's pushing him out, disrespecting him, to kind of be increasingly more disrespectful, because maybe, they're trying to not really, point out his potential health issues publicly, right? We don't know that, right? That's their own business, that's their own private things. But, as you said, Nate, like they're putting out a special video message. Like that's something that they're doing together. It's a collaboration, right? It's collaborative. This isn't like it doesn't seem like a force out, right? And based off this quote here, it almost seems like at least a couple of years ago, Charles is almost it feels like he's implying that he has some semblance of power over his role, that they will do what he wants, right? Like it's his way. And when you think about it more so, right, like Mario Wonder, now that we know that it's his voice, that he's no longer voicing it, but they're still modeling Mario's voice after him, it's not like they want to necessarily go in a different direction, right? So I'm not sure where is the logical reason that Nintendo would want to push him out if they're still going in the same direction, if he can still do the voice from what we gather, if they are honoring him in every public way possible, if he's collaborating with a special video message, if he's still working with Nintendo as Mario's ambassador. And going back to the movie, he actually had several roles in the movie. He played Giuseppe, and he also played Mario's dad, which had several important lines throughout the movie in the beginning and the end. So I just don't see how this is how they're trying to disrespect him in any way.
Just wait till you see the video message where Miyamoto rips his soul out.
That's it.
Yeah,
in front
right.
of everyone.
Right. Yeah. Miyamoto's just gonna.
I think it's important to also remember that if he's not in Mario Wonder, this decision was made years ago. So if there was some like foul play, it probably would have leaked out, right? Someone would have said something, or something would have come out. This had to be decided, at least a year ago, possibly much more. So I would venture to say even more, because I'm guessing at the conception stage of Mario Wonder, they probably had talks like, hey, we're not going to, one party decided that they weren't going to have him be involved anymore. So yeah, I think if there was something nasty going on behind the scenes, I feel like we would have had some tabloid type coverage of it, in the last year or so.
I also feel like if they were forcing him out, they wouldn't make him an ambassador. They would just let him go and not have him be involved at all. That seems like a very, hey, we respect you. You have a lifetime contract, and we don't want to violate that. But even if you didn't, we still want you to be a part of this, because you do mean a lot to other people, and you do mean a lot to the fans. So you should, to some extent, still continue to be Mario by going out to these events and going out and meeting fans, because we respect you and we don't just want to drop you and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because some of the commentary out there, we're not going to mention any content creators in particular, because I'm sure if people pay enough attention, they know who's been saying what out there, because they've been saying it publicly. But like, there's been some statements out there like, oh yeah, Nintendo, there's doing them dirty because, a 67-year-old man really wants to go around traveling to conventions, and it's so much easier to just make more money by going into a voice acting booth. And it's really funny when I see commentary like that, because one, it means you don't really pay as much attention to him as you think you do, because I actually have watched him on several podcasts. He's been on a ton of them, because he's always willing to go on podcasts all the time. And he has literally said, I go into the voice booth like once every 3 years. It's not something that he's even doing that often in the first place. And he loves going to conventions. And it's his favorite thing about his career is being able to go to all these conventions. And he chooses to go. No one makes him do it. And obviously, for those who don't know, people of his stature, they're paid to be there. These typically aren't free appearances because they are attractions to get people to buy tickets and come into the show. So, and obviously on top of that, he's been getting a regular salary from Nintendo. So this is far from anything disrespectful to his legacy. I think a lot of this, just looking at it in hindsight and considering all of the arguments I've heard for why people think Nintendo's doing him dirty, is people are still hurt he's not the voice of Mario in the Mario movie, and they never let it go.
I agree. I think that's spot on.
They never let it go. They're hurt. He's an iconic character from their life, and they think anytime an iconic character is moving on, they're forced out. And it's funny because they notably said he's done in the games. He still voices Mario's dad in the movies. He's probably still going to do that in the next movie if his dad's in it, which he has to be because he was still alive at the end. So
theory, the next Mario movie will not even, we won't even see New York. It'll just be entirely in the Mushroom Kingdom. So it's possible that we won't see them in the movies again just because they have them there. We know they exist, but there's never going to be a reason to go back to New York.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? All I know is when you read the statement, it says voice in the video games. Well, notably, movies aren't video games.
Yeah, conceivably.
So they never really ruled it out. But also, maybe they don't even know what's going on. People forget. There's actually strikes going on right now, so they can't really do anything.
Yeah. So, it's tough. I guess it depends on what hit. And I don't want to make implications on where he is in his health-wise, but it does depend on why he's no longer going to be the voice of Mario, right? If it's health related, then I don't know why he would do his dad moving forward, right? But I mean, if it's just kind of like he, more of a let's transition elsewhere, and we should start to implement the future because eventually it needs to happen anyway, then maybe you're right. I
think there are some implications because he's not the voice of Wario in the next WarioWare game either that comes out this year. So this was obviously decisions made a while ago. Like, this isn't new. They're just letting us know now as games are going to be coming out without him voicing. Why they didn't let us know sooner, when people were kind of like arguing over whether he was voicing Mario and Mario Wonder when they dropped that, because people were arguing on the internet for like a month. Like, is that Charles? Is it not Charles? Oh my God, what's going on? It's like,
it was still like, I didn't really see a lot. Like, I didn't see any of those arguments. So I would say they did a pretty
you gotta be deep in the Nintendo community.
Yeah, you really do.
It's like in the underbelly. But
at that point though, it's like
look,
everything.
Whatever happened, I'm sure it's mutual. Even if Nintendo initiated the conversation, I don't think Charles would have been that mad about it. Because here's the thing. One thing that is notable about that movie, and obviously this upcoming game, is the movie included obviously voice acting all throughout the movie, which is something Charles has never actually technically done for a Mario character. He hasn't been speaking lines and paragraphs and carrying a 2-hour flick or an hour and a half flick. And then on top of that, what's the very first thing we see of Mario Wonder? It opens up and the flowers start speaking. Again, a very different way to introduce a Mario game with voice acting, which could suggest maybe Mario's got full spoken lines in this game, potentially. And if that's the case, maybe they are just saying, you know what, we do have a new direction we're going with Mario, with the movies and the games and Nintendo World. And you know what? You're 67. We know you're not going to be able to carry this for another few decades as we're going in this new direction. You know what? We're just gonna go right now. Thank you for your services. We still want you to go to all the conventions because you love them, and we're not going to take that from you. Because obviously that would be the worst thing, is if they took that from him. Something he has openly admitted he loves, not hates and is hard on a 67-year-old man. He literally does it because he wants to. Nintendo is not twisting his arm to go to the premiere of the Mario movie. They're not twisting his arm to go to the premiere of the Super Nintendo World. Sorry, I keep calling it Mario World because that's the only thing open right now in the US, but Super Nintendo World. They're not twisting his arm to go to these places. He legitimately loves doing it, and he only does a select amount of appearances a year. He does spend a majority of the time with his family. So He seems like an incredibly happy man from all indications. And unless he goes on a podcast and makes any sort of suggestion otherwise, there's no reason to think there's going to be any animosity. And for all the arguments, he's under NDA and he got paid extra money. He didn't get paid extra money not to talk. The guy probably knows about the next 17 he's probably got literally Miyamoto on speed dial on his phone.
He's probably got a Switch too. We don't know.
Yeah, he might even have a Switch too for all but that's the point. Like, he is so ingrained into the Nintendo thing, and Nintendo's been so. If you look at how they've handled all their transitions, like, they were super respectful to Reggie Fils-Aimé and let him say goodbye to the fan community in his own way. What company lets an executive say goodbye to the fan community? Yeah, Nintendo, because they recognized how important he was to the fan base. And this is sort of what they're doing with Charles, except this isn't goodbye. This is, come see me. I'm going to be at all these conferences. You want to go to PAX West Nintendo Live? I'm there. You want to, go here? I'm going to be there. Come meet me. I'm still going to be Mario at these events. And then, yeah, I mean, even look at Shigeru Miyamoto. I know he still obviously has a huge role at Nintendo, but he's transitioned pretty much out of game development, and they're super respectful of him. Of course, Miyamoto is clearly on a different level because Nintendo wouldn't be where they were without his creativity. But
didn't he have a hand in Pikmin 4?
He did have a hand in Pikmin 4.
Yeah.
He wasn't the director, but he was listed as a producer, which he hasn't been in a long time.
It is a big difference between director versus a producer, right? Like, that's.
But he wasn't a producer for any other game lately until Pikmin 3 was the last game that he was directly involved in with Star Fox Guard and Star Fox Zero.
I love how you said Star Fox Guard first.
Because Guard's a better game. Okay.
Yeah. I do want to kind of continue
trying to mention his good game first.
Yeah. Oh, I do want. I mean, okay. Well, we could talk about Star Fox Zero all night, but let's not. I do want to kind of go in this direction. You kind of brought up about just how Nintendo treats some of their retired employees, if we want to call them that. Like, you look at the relationship between Sakurai and Nintendo. Now, Sakurai is not currently employed for Nintendo and hasn't been employed for Nintendo for a long time. That's more like a partnership. It's a collaboration. But for example, you look at his YouTube channel. He has permissions from Nintendo to use a lot of footage and concept art and testing stuff that was never released publicly. Like, that's an unusual relationship you don't see very often. And just on the note of Smash Brothers, right? Like Smash Ultimate, the fact that they were able to bring in so many third-party characters, obviously Sakurai had a big part to do with that, but so did Nintendo. And I bring that up because I think it kind of goes to show that the Nintendo of today is actually very good at working with other companies and big people in the industry. Like, they actually have established some good relationships, and that may seem odd because if you think about old Nintendo, it was the other way around. Like, what was his name? That Yamauchi, like the previous president of Nintendo, he was like mafia, right? Like, he was
old Nintendo would never work with Hideki Kamiya. I can tell you that right now. That guy at Platinum Games, and the way he presents himself publicly and the way he opens his mouth and is dropping swear words and yelling at fans publicly, Nintendo would never work with someone like that in the past. But Nintendo today is like, dude,
very different.
Your games are kick ass. We might not hire you on our team, but you can work for us.
So it's kind of funny, right? Like, so like back then when Nintendo got started, like the old people kind of got phased out in the 90s, right? And then like starting with the 21st century, like the young, talented developers and designers that helped to popularize them, like Iwata and Miyamoto, they took on like the leading roles, right? And now you see that, obviously Iwata passed away, but you kind of see, if you look at the history and how they've changed, like it's coincided with who was in power.
They showed Iwata a lot of respect too, even though obviously they weren't planning on him passing when he did. They still were super respectful of that, not just to him and his family. But then they made lots of public statements. They let Reggie go on stage, and give a speech about him. They've just been very, say what we want about Nintendo as a greedy company. They seem to, especially the Japanese part of them, work on a lot of that Japanese culture of honor. And they like to honor the people that help them be where they are today. And from that, I highly doubt this was a very tense conversation, even if it was Nintendo's decision. I don't think Charles sat there and cried on the phone and argued with him about it. I guarantee that this was like something that he's already known about. This isn't new because he would have known years ago because there's new games coming out. So yeah, if this is just something they're making public now as those games are starting to come out, so people don't start, maybe keep yelling on the internet about it.
I definitely think they knew about it before the release of the movie.
Oh yeah,
for sure,
definitely.
Right?
Last year,
Zach was
I'm
saying,
sure
like,
last year he probably knew.
Yeah, they've probably been sitting on both WarioWare and Mario Wonder for a good while too. So yeah.
And who knows? Like people talk about the Mario movie stuff, and he's done interviews and stuff about it, and it sounds like from everything that he has said, anyways, publicly, that not only was he never considered for the role, he never asked for it either. Which means that this conversation could have happened as soon as he was told the Mario movie was going to happen. They wanted him to have a role in it, and maybe it could have even been made back then, and he would just been like, "Hey." That's the thing. We don't know.
I also don't really agree that it should have been Charles as the role for the Mario Bros. Movie, because this is a different take.
Yeah.
This is me bringing my One Piece fandom into the conversation, right?
Oh, here we go.
But
It's
relevant though, because right now they're about to release the One Piece live action, right? It's a different medium. Sure. One Piece is a manga and an anime, right? And they're obviously there's different people. Like I know in Japan they're actually using like the Japanese actors, which is actually pretty cool. But the point is that when you're going into a different medium, you have to look at things from a different angle. You're portraying things in a different way. So it makes sense to use a different actor. I don't think that's crazy. I don't think that's in any way, disrespecting Charles Martinet. And I mean, as I brought up earlier, right? Like he has multiple roles in the movie. Like it's not, he was absolutely respected in the movie. The movie does pay homage to him. So yeah.
Also, it was hilarious the cast they chose. I remember that first direct day, and we saw Chris Pratt. Like me and my friends were watching it in VC, and we were dying. And then it just kept going and going, and then they got to Donkey Kong with Seth Rogen, and that's probably the hardest I've laughed in a hot minute. And they didn't all get great.
The initial reaction to the voice actor unveiling,
wow.
The only one that
was
maybe
hard.
Like I think it's pretty much like, even though the critically the movie wasn't received well because critics are dumb, the voice acting was considered to be pretty good even amongst critics. The only person
critics just want it to be some deep lessonary story, like a deep Disney Pixar movie or something. It's just meant to be a fun movie about a video game character. What are we doing?
They definitely made that movie for the fans, not for the critics. And you can tell, because the critics didn't like it, but the fans love it.
Not just like everyone, even like people who only vaguely aware of Mario. Their kids loved. Everyone loved. My kids have now seen the movie 17 times at home. They love
I just bought the movie on Blu-ray last week.
Oh! Physical media.
Here's my little theory. I think that as Mario enters the cinematic universe, the theme park universe, commercials, who knows what, I think they probably don't want a voice anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think the best way to pay respect to Charles is by saying, hey, let's put a finite end on your career. And now we're going to have, a team of Marios that do different voices across different mediums, across different things. And we don't have to say like, oops, this one wasn't Charles. Now he can retire. He was Mario for 3 decades.
Yeah.
And now we have, when you go to the theme park, it's okay if Mario doesn't, say Wahoo exactly the same way.
Yeah. What was
it's like into the Spideyverse. They announced an infinite number of Mario.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like some media outlet or whatever asked Nintendo who voices Mario Wonder, and they're just like, you'll find out in the credits of the game.
Yeah. It's like I don't think they're gonna have a guy anymore. Like I think it's just gonna be
Here's the question though. People. Are they gonna get another person to do all the Mario characters?
Well, they noted with Mario Wonder that there are voice actors. So I'm guessing that they might not use one for every voice this time around.
You know what would really get people with pitchforks is if they did some sort of like AI thing, like to like.
Oh, that's not. You know what? If I swear we get to the credits and it's just AI, Look, we're not talking. We'll cross
Voiced
that
by
road when it
ChatGPT.
happens.
I want my
would be
$60
so-
back.
Yeah, there would be pitchforks.
I think we have to end the
everywhere on
podcast
internet.
right now. That was just not good. That was
No.
all right. Well, we need to move on. This just went in a completely.
Yeah, sorry. I just was
Dang
like,
it.
imagine if they use some sort of synthesizer. Anyways, yeah.
All right. Well, from that story on to another story that I think gamers will probably not be happy with. It was announced today. Don't worry, we do have a fun topic after this one. I promise. We get to talk about some Switch 2 stuff. It's gonna be fun.
Yay.
But this topic is like one that
great.
I just sort of feel like I don't know how
Oh.
big of a deal it's going to be because it's towards the end of the life of the system, but what it could mean for future Nintendo platforms if this becomes widely adopted and if we see Nintendo themselves using it, because Nintendo is not happy that games like Tears of the Kingdom are pirated a week and a half before the game comes out. Denuvo is now officially part and available as middleware for Nintendo Switch developers. And for those who don't know what Denuvo is, I don't blame you if you're Nintendo people. We haven't had to worry about this ever. It's a DRM. And if you don't know what that basically means, it is a anti-cheat / anti-piracy piece of software that interacts with your code to encrypt things and unfortunately often require online checks to ensure you're playing on legit hardware with a legit copy of the game. And the reason there is so much angst with this among people when they hear about it is they think of PC gaming, where they claim, and they're making the claim with Switch 2, that Denuvo does not impact game performance, but yet every game that has it on PC has worse frame rates and worse performance and longer load screens. Oh, and by the way, if the online check fails, even if you own it, you just can't play. Whereas hackers just remove it entirely and get a smoother running game with better load times, and they don't have to worry about online checks. So it doesn't really even stop the piracy in the first place. It just sort of stops the day one piracy. They usually have it hacked within a week. Whether that'll be the case with Switch games, I don't know. And obviously a concern for me, and I'm hoping it doesn't work this way like it does on PC, Switches aren't always online. They're meant to be on the go. They're not always on the internet. So if you start putting this in games and requiring online checks, that's going to make people not play your game, basically. So
Guess what? My theory's right. The SIM card.
the
It's
SIM card,
happening.
oh, here we go.
Oh my
That
god.
was that's the controversial Switch 2 feature.
No, I am not paying an extra subscription fee to my cell phone provider just to access Denuvo servers. That is just. By the way, no one's used it yet. It just got approved by Nintendo, and I can see why Nintendo might want to have something like this on there for their own purposes due to having this happen to games. And I don't think it's going to have a big impact on Switch overall because we're towards the end of the generation. So it's not going to impact a majority of the library. But are you guys worried about this at all, especially like moving forward with the next platform? Because Nintendo needs to do something to prevent piracy. But is this what they need to do? And
I have an idea.
Am I overblowing this? Is this not a big deal and it's not even going to work the way it does on PC?
I mean,
I don't know.
If they want to implement this correctly, what they do is they implement it up until day one. They put a patch out day one that removes it, and you're just done.
Oh, I see what you mean. So any copies that leak
That go
online
out
won't work.
Won't work.
It's part of the day one patch to get rid of.
I mean,
you still have to. I guess it's still technically DRM until you are, hook it up to online.
well, would that be better than what Nintendo might be leaning towards, and that's releasing digital copies versus physical later? Because physical are the copies that keep leaking. And by the way, I don't like the idea of physical games coming out like 2 weeks after.
Yeah,
I hate that. Nintendo's done it a couple times this year. Granted, it's been with shadow drops and ports, but I'm like, is this what's to come?
It feels like they're throwing it out there.
They're
testing the waters.
Testing the waters.
Wait till Switch 2, and then they got that all digital Switch 2, and they're like, "Oh, Mario
it's the DRM
out.
system, yay!"
And then, but you want to play the new 3D Mario physical? Well, you got to wait 2 weeks.
Oh boy,
I think this is like a fun topic since we're kind of short on Switch news, but I don't think it's going to have a major impact overall. For me, the concern is Switch was incredibly open, region free, easy access to alternative eShops, share your account. And it really feels like with the new ban hammer rules they put in place a couple of weeks back in this, that maybe they're about facing on that, and maybe Switch 2 is going to be region locked again. Maybe they are going to not have as
They're
easy
so
of a
pissed.
way.
The
So that
Switch
would
games.
suck. And I love my Australian eShop for those 16-hour
Oh,
early
man,
releases
that'd
or
be
whatever. But
Nice.
yeah, so that's the part I just hope that they've made some positive strides forward with their online this generation, and I really don't want to see them go like, oh crap, we got to lock everything down, we got to be extra secure. And I mean, that would be bad. But I don't think we're going to be in a situation where Mario, Switch 2 has to check in with the server for you to be able to play. Like, I don't see that happening, especially not with first party titles.
I hope that Denuvo doesn't work that way on Switch. And I said the one thing gives me hope is that Denuvo knows Switch can't like be online all the time, so it can't work in that way. It needs to be and they talk about in their announcement post about how they're encrypting parts of the code and stuff like that, where literally their claim is that an emulator wouldn't be able to decrypt that code, only the original Switch. And I'm just like, yeah, but that also is before people hack their Switch and find out how Switch is decrypting it, and then they reverse engineer it. I think, and maybe that's true. I could just add an extra layer of making it a bit more difficult. Like I said, Denuvo's existed for a long time, and people keep working around it, but it did get rid of a lot of the day one piracy. What I will say is one thing, if they're using this and it doesn't impact performance, they claim it does, and I don't know any middleware that doesn't impact performance, but let's say that it doesn't. Well, I could see Nintendo using it if it doesn't require online checks because they're tired of their games leaking, and maybe we find out they are using it. Maybe the other way since proved out because Mario Wonder is going to have it, and now it won't leak early because it's just not going to work if it leaks early. But I think for Switch 2, I think people got to remember the reason that we got all these games day one so quickly with Switch was because they were using an off-the-shelf component that was already hacked. And they literally just stuck it on a board, and people realized, oh, if we cross the same pins, we get root access. Huh, they didn't even redesign the chip. Look at that. Look how easy this thing is to hack. Nintendo's not going to make that mistake again. This chip coming up for the next system is going to be completely custom, and people won't know how to hack it right away. It's going to take work, and it's going to be sort of like a PS5 and Xbox Series situation where it takes years and years. About 2 years, about 2 to 2.5 years it takes to basically make emulators that are able to even properly emulate the games, and then on top of that being able to dump them is a whole nother thing. So that's why believe it or not, guys, there are PlayStation 5 emulators. People always act like Switch is the only platform in the world that has piracy happen. PS4 emulators are rampant. So are Xbox One and Xbox Series and PlayStation 5 emulators exist as well with hacked versions of games. So like this happens to all platforms. It's just Switch seems to get hit the hardest because it's been every game before it even releases is suddenly being played by thousands of people on an emulator. And it's just, it's frustrating, probably more so for Nintendo, I think, than anyone else. Because I will say, shockingly, despite Tears of the Kingdom coming out when it did, unless you were looking for it, you didn't really see the leaks. So credit to the Zelda community for not like pushing those leaks out in front of everyone on every major social media channel there is. You sort of kept it in community, which awesome. Maybe you were also afraid of Nintendo banning your Switch. Is that? I mean, there could be alternative motives to that. I don't know, because Nintendo was not happy about that. So unhappy they were going after Discord mods, and dude, Nintendo was going hardcore after those leaks. They were so not happy. Same thing when the art book leaked. They are not happy. They were trying to shut it down, but once it hits the internet, they know it's already too late. They just want to hold someone responsible. But I just really hope, as long as Denuvo does not work the way it does on PC, I'm okay with it, because I do think companies will use it, because companies use it all the time on PC. So they're going to use it on Switch. If it's available, they'll use it.
Yeah. I kind of want to touch on something somewhat related to what Zach brought up, how maybe there's this concern that Nintendo might be steering away from some of the things we love that it did for Switch, like being region free and such. Because, if they start implementing some of these, like this Denuvo thing, and they start kind of becoming a little bit more strict, that could happen. Because what I've noticed, like over the different generations, it almost feels like when of Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, whenever they're not doing well, they tend to be very consumer friendly. But once they're on top, that next generation, they start to become a little bit more strict. It's like, oh no, we're not going to do cross-platform stuff. Oh, we don't have to have everything compatible. Like, I wonder now that the Switch is so successful, will they be a bit more stingy and picky about what they do and allow for Switch 2? So, I'm not saying for sure it's going to suck on Switch 2, but it's just saying a note that there has been a correlation. Whenever a company's on top, they tend to become a little bit less consumer friendly.
Yeah, it happens. I think we'll move on. It was just sort of a topic I wanted to toss in there because, again, we're all sort of just waiting on the big news to come. And I already knew this last topic was going to be a lot more exciting. Every time we get to talk about new stuff from Nintendo, it's exciting. And Switch 2 seems to have a little bit of ramping up towards the reveal next year. No, we're not talking about this year. No, people thought it was going to be at Gamescom.
What do you mean? It's happening tomorrow.
No. Yeah, it's happening. Nintendo Live 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Tune in. They're unveiling it at the end of the.
Did you guys see the lineup for that?
You mean how it's all multiplayer games?
Well, it's just like, oh, we have a stack of Animal Crossing amiibo cards you can go scan in. Oh, come play Mario Maker 2. It's just, I mean, I guess
not worth. I guess it's taking
like the thing that sucks for me is like not even a Mario Wonder demo. No,
nothing.
Not even at your own event, Nintendo.
How many people literally don't have a Switch that would want to go to a Nintendo Live event? Like, that's my question. What is the Venn diagram of people that don't have these games that would be willing to go to downtown Seattle to attend this?
I'll say this: if I lived in Seattle, I might just go. But that all this has become really is a local event, which I guess is they only really advertise it as a local event. But the problem is they put it on their massive public social media channels, not their local stuff. And so they seemingly wanted to make it a big deal.
They talked about it on the
and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna connect to the PAX West, and they know people travel from out of state to go to PAX West. But then you're just doing what you did at PAX East, which was a bunch of old games brought back.
It's good that they didn't charge money for it. It's kind of dumb that it was a raffle, but like I guess it would be an okay thing, fun thing to do if it's like, oh, you're already at PAX and we're here already, so let's go check out Nintendo stuff for a minute.
Like if I lived around the area, sure.
There's competitions that also happen there, and I think those would be fun to watch because I always enjoy competitive Smash and competitive kart and etc. But they didn't advertise the Nintendo Live, and I went to PAX East. They did all that same shit there. Like they had a demo booth for
They had a giant stage
out.
Smash Bros tournament
And
going
they had a Smash Bros stage tournament. They had a Mario Kart a Mario Kart tournament going on.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they might have like a couple like new things and make it a little bit more bigger, bring out people like Mario in the suit and all that. And so I don't know. But
this brings up
it's aiming up to be the same thing as what was at PAX East. It's just on a bigger scale.
Yeah. So I haven't dove into the full gist of this topic, but talking about that makes me think about this for a moment. We haven't really had a public facing Nintendo demo event since when?
E3.
Back in 2019.
Bring back
Is
Space World.
Nintendo just not going to do public demos anymore?
I know. That's what I was like. When I went to PAX and I saw like they had a Nintendo thing there, I was like super excited. I was like, oh my God, are we going to get like a Tears of the Kingdom demo? Like, are we going to get to play through?
You got a pen.
Like, I was really copium and hey, play some Woolly World, play like the first level of Woolly World. And I was like, really?
Like a game I already beat. Cool. Thanks.
How about here, have a pen. And I was like, cool. Thanks. Great. Thanks. This is great. I mean, the statue was cool, but it really is disappointing because it's like you go to these events and you're like, oh, you think that you're going to get some really exclusive Nintendo experience. And because like, I mean, that's like the point in them being there. Right. But you're just getting the same shit you can go and get at GameStop.
Well, it was really weird.
Or Walmart or Target.
It was really weird too because Nintendo had a big booth at PAX East, and yet everyone around them has demos of games that aren't out yet. But
they had a couple of big booths.
But Nintendo, they have these massive booths, all old games. Everyone else is showing off games that some of them aren't even out yet still, and they're like, nope, we're just gonna.
But let me ask you this:
you want to play Mario Kart, right?
Were those booths full? Were there people there playing the game?
Some of them were, yes.
Why do new stuff when you can put out old stuff and get the same result. It's like that's
well,
why they
the game
sell all their
depends.
games.
I want
full
it-
price.
It's the merch
It's the
stuff.
swag.
People want the swag.
Especially at cons.
Let me
I
tell you,
love
there
my
were
games
people that
at
literally walked in and looked at the reps and said, "Can I just walk around and grab the pins and leave?" And they said, "Sure."
cons. Yeah, they're
Like
I
the
wonder
line,
what
the
I'm gonna
line was really big, like the first day, and after that, it never got big again because
Yep,
everyone
yeah,
realized
exactly.
there's nothing. There's nothing.
it wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Once word got out that it was just games we already have, people were just sort of lost interest in it a bit.
you could take pictures with Mario and Luigi.
Yeah. There was on the
But-
last day, the most people I saw there were like people with kids just bringing their kids on through, which is fine. That's cool. Go meet Mario and Luigi and get your pictures, and it's fun. Good experience for the kids. But like a lot of the places that had all the actual demos for games, like they were packed. You'd have to wait in some of them. The Xseed one, they had a lot you could walk up to, but then Story of Seasons.
The Cold
I
of the
was there.
Lamb one was another one
Wasn't
that was
out.
like massive and popular, and
Yeah.
like there was always a line that was like wrapped around it 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just
that
Nin-
was really cool.
it's not just Nintendo. I mean, Xbox and PlayStation also basically sit out everything. I mean, the industry just kind of self-cannibalized live events, and they just aren't. Now we
Yeah.
have directs and state of plays and Xbox, whatever it's. I mean, it's
Except
very sad for me because I loved all that
They
stuff.
have
but
demos at Gamescom and Nintendo. Guess what they have? They have
Perfect
a
segue.
giant. They have a giant. They have a huge booth, but it's all enclosed. No one can see anything. There's one way in and one way. There's probably an emergency exit somewhere, but there's one way in and one way out. It's a giant red booth, and yes, people have seen developers walking in and out of it.
You have
And
to sign
that's
an
it.
NDA.
But that's what I'm saying. Like they have they have like one of the
Before.
biggest booths there, and yet you can't see anything. It's completely cut off. It's not open to the public. You can walk by past it, of course, but you can't get in. And that was one of the things that was coming out from Gamescom was that, hey, they got this huge booth there. They never have a booth this big, and yet they're not showing anything. All they have is that Smash Bros. Tournament, which is happening on a public stage that other companies are also using, which is exactly what they did at PAX East. And that's it. That's all Nintendo actually has going on there is a Smash Bros. Tournament. And then they have this big booth that is clearly just for business meetings, and it's a lot bigger than their usual business meeting area is. So that's also leading to some of the speculation that, okay, because like some of the business meeting areas in the past, like even at E3, you could see in it. It wasn't like a big secretive thing. This is quite secretive. They want no one seeing anything. They got security at the entrance in the front. They're double checking not only your badge, they're checking IDs apparently, of course, because they're trying to make sure you are who you are. And I'm just like, man, are they? For starters, this is just could be some hopium. You got Nintendo Switch 2 units back there? Just saying. A dev
Probably
unit they're
not.
showing
Just
off to developers to show
probably
what they can do and
talking
get them
about it.
interested. I'm not
100%.
saying that they do, but they already sent out dev units. And for anyone who maybe has questions, like, look, we got one. We'll let you come in this back room, sign NDAs, see what you do. And I know people act like, oh, yeah, that can't happen. Well, every time a new system's coming, once Game Developer Conference ends, we start to get details about it. Why? Just because the developers who have dev units are together and they're chit-chatting. That's pretty much it. That's how information gets out. They end up chatting with various media outlets and all this other stuff. And whether or not we'll get anything out of GDC, I don't know. Here's the thing. Nintendo does business meetings at all these things. They do business meetings at E3, or at least they did. They do them at Gamescom. They go to Tokyo Game Show every single year for business meetings. They do the same thing at PAX East and PAX West. They also have business meetings there, but they do it. They don't do it on the floor there because the floor is full public. They do it in some back rooms. But so the business meetings aren't unusual. It is a little unusual how big the booth is for these business meetings that they're doing. But what it means is just a guess. We're never going to know. We don't have access. I mean, Zach, sorry, are you in Cologne, Germany right now? Are you just using a green screen? Green screen effect?
Well, maybe I don't wish. I don't know because even Starfield's not playable there. Spider-Man, it's just not what it used to be, man.
Starfield's almost here, and they're like, "We're going to show you a movie theater presentation."
Yeah, here's
you
a
couldn't just let
live-action
people-
trailer.
You couldn't just let people play the beginning of the game because the beginning of the game's same for everyone, and it's already leaked out there. You can't just let people play it. I don't. Okay.
Yeah. This whole
Very
live
EA of you. EA did that with
galvanizing.
Star Wars that one year. Come and watch a
that's true.
theater presentation, and even though the game releases in 2 weeks, and okay, sure. Anyways, beyond all of that stuff that's happening, that we really have no idea what's going on. Right? Could be about Switch 2, could be about anything. is other stuff going on with Nintendo's president, Shintaro Furukawa, doing some interviews, just one interview, I guess, in this case, with a Japanese outlet called NHK. And there's a couple things he talks about. One of them is obviously just, one of their focuses as a company is trying to get people to keep choosing to play Nintendo games, and their realization that people don't have to play our games. And that is one of the core principles we keep in the back of our mind, is that, hey, we got to keep making people want to play. They're not just going to keep showing up because we make them. We have to give them reasons to do it. So I thought that was quite interesting. And it does show that Nintendo is aware, as I'm sure most companies are, people aren't guaranteed to play the next Mario game just because you slap Mario on the title. They got to entice people. And I think maybe they've learned that the hard way, because they probably thought New Super Mario Bros. U was going to be like a 30 million seller and push Wii U like crazy. Because look at the New Super Mario Bros. Series before it. So look how well it was. I think at the time they literally thought just chucking a Mario game out there was going to, yes, and it didn't work. So they might have had some humble pie, realizing that we can't just release games and think that's just putting the game out there is good enough. They got to keep it in mind that they need to constantly be thinking about fighting for an audience. They can't ever just rest. And I think all the companies at some point have been guilty of resting when they've been successful. So that was really nice to hear. I think that means this whole innovation thing we've seen with Kirby and Zelda and now Mario Wonder with the voice acting and the craziness with the world switching, Odyssey being able to take over a dinosaur. Dude, we got to be a T-Rex in a Mario game. Like all this innovative stuff we see is just going to sort of be the norm. And they're going to keep pushing for new and fresh ideas to keep people playing, hopefully. Waiting to see what the big one's going to be for Splatoon. They've sort of just repeated it for 3. I know these Splatoon pros are going to get into. Yeah, I know. I know about the little changes. I argue the same thing with Madden every year. Okay, I get it. There are changes. But
the DLC, the second DLC or third DLC, whatever, the one that's like white. I don't know what it is. It looks kind of crazy. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it does look like it looks like a big departure from whatever.
They always do a lot with the DLC too. Their DLC is usually worth it for Splatoon.
I don't know. DLC 1 was like, here's all the old stuff, and then DLC 2 is like what the.
But people were excited. Believe it or not, people have nostalgia already for the first Splatoon game, which is
crazy. I mean, the first. Can you believe? Wait. Okay, since I was in New York, I went to the Nintendo store, obviously, and I saw a Wii there, and like their historical, like gaming case said 2006, and I was like, holy shit, 3 more years and that thing's 20 years old. Like, isn't that wild? And isn't the Wii U like? Isn't that 10 years now? Wasn't that 2012 or 2013?
I think it was 13.
2012.
Yeah, so that's already 10 years old. Isn't that crazy? The Wii U is 10 years
Switch
old.
Is almost 10 years old.
I know.
Like, we're talking about these old systems. The current ones going on to year 8 here in a second. We're in year 7.
Yeah. What did Splatoon?
We're just getting old. It's just an accepting
2015.
Effect.
So like it's 8 years old.
We're not teenagers anymore.
That's I could see people who grew up with it and then are now.
Well, it's wild to me because barely anyone owned a Wii U. So like granted, Splatoon still sold decently on a system that didn't sell well, but it's like, man, there's people with nostalgia for a game that like barely anyone played. This is sweet. I love how hardcore the community can be sometimes. Anyways, and what's awesome for that first part of the DLC as well is there's people who legitimately have never been there before because they didn't buy a Wii U. So it's brand new for them. Yeah, nostalgic for those that did have it. But Shintaro Furukawa wasn't done just talking. Yeah, he talked about games, right? We don't. Nintendo's going to do their thing with games, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're on a podcast together. We love their games, right? They're going to keep releasing hopefully good games. But then he talked about revolutionizing the way they play, and specifically how they don't want to focus on novelties, which are new and unusual things. That's like the exact definition. But they basically just exist to exist, which some people argue Nintendo has sort of done before. A new thing just to have a new thing. People think that's what the gamepad was. A new thing just to have a new thing because Nintendo's own developers didn't really seem to want to develop for this new thing. The glasses free 3D. Impressive tech. And then they released systems that didn't have it because it turned out everyone was just turning it off because there's headaches and it just was more of a novelty than it was everyone wants to do it all the time. And he, we haven't seen this new president talk a ton about the future of Nintendo because he's not as forward facing as Iwata was. Iwata was doing interviews all over the place and always talking about it, always apologizing for the same mistakes over and over again, saying that I'll do better, and then he never really did. But he was trying. I just think that he no shade to Iwata. He just very, very friendly guy. He didn't always seem to understand why things weren't working when they worked, but he also took Nintendo to incredible heights. So, and Switch is still one of his final ideas. So, still living his legacy through the current platform. But this new president, the only thing we've really heard before now, well, one, for anyone who thinks Nintendo's never mentioned new hardware, technically they did back in 2021 when they told us Nintendo accounts were going to be forward compatible to the new hardware coming in 20XX. So technically, that was the first time that he confirmed that they are working on new hardware. He's also mentioned it since then when they stopped mentioning the whole middle of the generation stuff. He's talked about how, yeah, of course we're working on new hardware. We're always working on new hardware. Just a general statement. And so for anyone who thinks Nintendo's never said they're working on new hardware, this president himself has already confirmed they're working on new hardware. I don't know why people fight tooth and nail about it. Probably because they're sick of hearing about new hardware because we've been talking about it since, 2019, 2020 Switch Pro? I get it. Okay.
Okay.
But this statement was really interesting to me because it basically sounded like we're not going to just put something new on a system to have something new. It has to, if we do a new thing, and it didn't even sound like a for sure, if we do something, it's got to revolutionize the way we play games. So I really liked this statement from him. But I've talked enough. What do you guys think about these statements coming from our fearless leader of Nintendo, who's never launched a new platform in his life?
I thought they were pretty scary, to be honest. This is the first time I saw that Lenovo Go thing last week. Yeah. Basically looks like a Switch. Then I hear Furukawa say this, and I'm like, oh god, Nintendo does not want to just make a Nintendo Steam Deck. They want to do something different. They want to do something new. And he has that little line at the end where he says, if we believe in it, we'll invest in it. And I go back to that R&D document we saw like a year and a half ago where they poured a ton of money into something. And it got me very worried because I would love just a Switch Pro, a more powerful Switch. And I do believe it'll still switch. I don't think they're going to go away from that. But between seeing Lenovo's basically Switch dupe and now Furukawa talking, I'm very concerned that the next Switch is going to have AR or VR or something we don't even know about. And I think that's very dangerous because every time that they've tried something crazy, it's been real up and down. There's no real lock. And I personally feel like if they just made a stronger Switch, I think you could go sell another 100 million. Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think it's risky if you're going to do this, but it feels like it's in their DNA they want to revolutionize. They want to change the way people think about games, how they play games. And it seems like that's just part and parcel with their existence. And I'm excited, but I'm also very fearful of what the heck this thing is going to be.
So, I don't know. I guess I read that we're talking about, like, from what I read, I interpreted that they're not going to necessarily do anything crazy. Like, they're not going to innovate just for the sake of doing something different. So I actually read it and was like, oh, okay. So they're going to evolve, but they're not going to necessarily reinvent the wheel. That was my interpretation.
Not for the sake of it differently, but if they can revolutionize, they'll invest in it and make it happen.
Right, they're willing to revolutionize if they see something. Yeah. And I guess it's all about perspective.
So
if someone comes out, hey, there's this screen thing that has buttons on it. Let's do Wii U too. Like,
look, the Dreamcast had Hall sensing sticks. Can we please just move on from the come on, the technology's been around for 30 years. Let's go.
I don't know if this helps you feel a little bit more comfortable or not, right? But have we heard any sort of crazy rumors from reliable sources that they're doing something weird or wonky? We haven't yet, right? Like, Eurogamer reported about Switch and it being a hybrid system before its reveal, and well, they were right. Eurogamer and Video Games Chronicle have not said anything like that. They said it's basically like a Switch, right? Whatever it is.
Do you remember how long it was before we found out that Switch would switch?
That's a good question.
How far before reveal?
I don't remember how far it was because there were rumors about it, but I don't
Remember
when
we
they
had
dropped.
that real popular image of that controller with like
Yeah,
the
it
game
came from
running
a
on the
patent.
controller or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Because they had a patent, and we had a good idea there could be some handheld component because of that patent and the murmurs out there that it has a screen, and we're like, oh, it's going to be a 3DS replacement. Or something.
I literally remember the image on the Eurogamer where they had like the rectangle like controller.
Oh yeah,
thing.
One of the OG.
Like, I wonder if I can find at least like the date of the Eurogamer report because that could like give us some
frame of reference, Romy.
Yeah,
because there were rumors about. Well, people had speculated about a year and a half before that we would maybe get a hybrid system because the Wii U was dying down and not doing well, and technically, even though the 3DS did respectable numbers at 75 million, it's crazy to call that respectable.
I got it.
It's the worst selling handheld.
Okay, so I don't know if this is helpful or not, but so I just Googled NX hybrid, a Eurogamer, and this article from July 30th, 2016. It says Nintendo NX is a portable console with detachable controllers. So that's when they put out the report.
So 9 months.
Yeah.
So that would be
like they unveiled February. It in October of that year. Like I try to go off when Nintendo showed us. Like they showed us what it was in October. So
did they know what the release timing in this article?
I don't know. Well, I remember there being a lot of speculation it would be holiday that year, and I think that might have been an original plan for holiday that year. But it's hard to know. They wanted a killer lineup of games for the first year. I know that was one of their focuses.
While you're looking for that, one other thing I thought about when I read this was, Furukawa always emphasizes this need to have a smooth transition, and Nintendo completely, dropped the ball on the Wii to Wii U transition. Do they need, or do they want, or do they perceive that they need some defining factor that sets this apart? So it's not just, we have the OLED, we have the light, now we have this thing. If they really want to separate it as a new generation, what is going to do that for, grandma and grandpa Walmart that want to pick it up?
Do we think that this president pays more attention to what everyone else is doing? Or do we think he's really isolated? Because I always felt like Nintendo was pretty isolated. Yeah. Hence how they've handled online. And...
I think it's hard to know. I feel like it seems like they're more worldly, but
yeah,
we haven't seen a ton of major decisions.
And to your credit with the VR stuff, there's a ton of patents out for VR stuff that have come out over the last couple of years showing that Nintendo has been investing in VR. I don't always know that it's a bad thing. I mean, PlayStation has VR. They launched the VR too. So as long as it's an optional accessory, I think that's totally fine. And Nintendo's big thing usually when they get something right is they do it in a way that's right time, right place, right price. And the big thing for VR is it's super expensive. And if they force it in the box like Kinect, suddenly you might add another $100 onto the system, and suddenly it's just too expensive. And so they're not solving that problem. But what they could do is that's not the selling point of the system. The selling point is this, but also say a couple of years in, instead of, we're dropping a light, actually, all those really popular VR games you like, we actually have a $100 headset. Now you're at a budget price for VR that's even below like the Oculus and stuff. Even the Oculus, Quest 2 and stuff. That's it comes in at a lower price. If the system already has motion controls with it, with detachable controllers, they can say you already have what you need. You 30 million owners, here's a $100 accessory, and now you can play Beat Saber and all these other stuff right here on your Switch 2 or whatever. And that could be maybe where that investment goes in terms of making VR affordable. It would be scary to me if they made a VR only device. That would be, that'd be bold.
Yeah, if it's VR only, then that's what makes me scared. Be bold. But if it's like an all-in-one, that'd be impressive, honestly. Even if it just ran the way that it currently does, and then it also does VR, that'd be impressive. I mean, I don't know how that would translate in terms of like, how it look in VR and how it run, but if it was an all-in-one type thing, that'd be kind of nuts. I wouldn't lie.
Can you guys see Nintendo getting up there to unveil this and being like, it's the Switch, but more powerful?
Yep.
Like, because that's what PlayStation does every time. That's what Xbox does every time. But will Nintendo get up there and say that? If it's
like just like a little video trailer drop, kinda.
I kind of want that though. I just want.
Too.
I don't really want. I don't want a new gimmick. I just want better Switch.
Does this president pay attention to what's going on around him? Because There's only one company in the industry that's been consistent with how much units they sell, and that is Sony. Every single home console sells 100 million plus. The one that didn't sold 80 million, which would have been Nintendo's second best selling home console until Switch came out. And people still argue Switch isn't a home console, so they'll still argue about that. The point is Sony sees consistent hardware sales generation to generation, and that's what they do. That's not to say they don't innovate. This, to me, is one of the most innovative standard controllers in a long time. And so give them credit to that. Also, people knock it. I know I'm not a huge fan of it. They added this touchpad back on the PS4. I understand it's not like the most popular or most used feature, but it is something that still persists with the PlayStation 5, meaning they're keeping this thing around and it's going to be there for future generations. So I do think that there are ways Nintendo can market this, because they're not going to market power, I don't think, per se. They maybe will mention the word 4K or something as a marketing term like they did with OLED. So I could see them bringing up something like that, but you're not going to hear about how many teraflops this thing has and CPU cores, and that's stuff that Sony and Microsoft do. But Nintendo will be like, they're going to show you things that will wow you in different ways. As an example, one thing I know that got people really in a tizzy, and I don't know how this happened and why this was so exciting, but when they unveiled the damn Nintendo Switch and it had NBA 2K and also Skyrim. Somehow Skyrim, the game that's on everything, excited people about the possibilities of this system.
And then we ended up thinking everything on that trailer was fake.
Yeah, because like there's no way. There's no way. Nintendo doesn't release systems like this. And turns out all of that was true. And there are ways to excite people. One, you need a first-party game that just looks and feels significantly like another step above anything people played on Switch. And if that's the 3D Mario, okay, how do you make 3D Mario feel and look so much better than Mario Odyssey? I don't know. That's their challenge is to find a way to make it feel like a next generation jump. And then I do think another way is showing off third-party games that you couldn't dream of being on Switch. You show off Elden Ring. You get a big third-party game like that people are like, nah, that Nintendo wouldn't have that game. Want to bet?
Do you think? Am I silly for thinking that the popularity of these portable PCs, Steam Deck, ROG Ally, that takes a feather out of Nintendo's cap for saying you can play Elden Ring on the go?
No, because one, most of the systems are really expensive. Like ROG Ally, $700. Nintendo not selling the $700.
Steam Deck's $400.
Sure. And they were giving them away during the Game Awards last year because they had too many on the shelf. Like they don't just give away thousands of them to be kind to everybody.
Yeah,
they give it away because they had
brand recognition, right?
Yeah,
it's different. It's different when it's on Nintendo.
Yeah.
Plus, you can also play Mario and Zelda and Mario Kart,
and they're the only
Smash,
place that doesn't put it anywhere else. Yeah.
Elden Ring.
Yeah. That's the selling point. The games are Nintendo is different than the other system because they are a company that can argue their game sell systems. And because they can argue that, what they have is the selling point is not only are we getting these big third-party games you would never dream to be on a Nintendo system. By the way, you saw our new 3D Mario, and that's not the only game we're showing. And they show a lineup of like 5 big Nintendo games that maybe drop in the first year, just like they did with Nintendo Switch. And they just go, you can't get these anywhere else. And guess what? If they have new technologies and a new chip, they won't be hacked. You won't be able to even emulate them day one on PC. And suddenly, if you really want to play these, you really do have to buy this system. I think the best way forward for Nintendo is you sell based on games. And I think they did that really well with Switch. I know they had new features to show off. And I guarantee there'll be something new. Some sort of new features. Maybe there'll be HD Rumble Plus. Maybe they'll start advertising themselves. Oh, we invented driftless sticks, even though they've been around for a bit from third parties. It's whatever. They're going to have some sort of marketing around it because I think the key thing for Nintendo is if the company's paying attention, everyone else has found a way to sell iterative systems and sell them just as well as the one before. So why can't we?
Yeah,
and I think the answer in the past has been, one, we don't do iterative systems often enough to really know if it's successful. And we were doing it during an era where we were literally changing cartridge formats every single generation. Like that's crazy to think. Like Xbox has been using discs since the first Xbox. Like PlayStation's been using it since the first PlayStation. They're not fundamentally changing formats and making people, have to rethink and repackage stuff. So I do think there's some of that in learning from that. And then also just learning, hey, let's not confuse people. When have we ever released a platform that doesn't confuse? Like, do you know what other company confuses people with the name of their systems and is always in last place? Xbox. Maybe we stop doing that. You know what sells well every year? The iPhone 14, now the 15 coming out. You know what sells well? The PlayStation 1 and 2. And when consumers aren't confused about what they're buying, oh, it's the next thing that I already really enjoy. And look at all these things it has that my current thing doesn't. That's the selling point. And it's worked for every other system in existence or every other, phones and everything else across the industry. Simplified marketing, iterative. There's still some new things that dynamic island. I don't really sure. That's a thing. I guess I can now tap the top of my screen to pause music.
Is there a way to do a sequential naming that goes beyond just a sequel that isn't numbers? And when I say that, I mean, for example, they could call it Super Switch, and I think most of us would get it. But what do they do after that? Do they call it Super Duper Switch? No.
That's the problem. That's the problem with using a name like that. Is it locks you into like, no, we got to come up with a unique name every time. They're switching it, and that doesn't really work. Also, I don't know that I think Super just works for us classic Nintendo fans. I don't think new consumers that first time Nintendo platform will understand what Super Switch is. How is that different than a Switch Lite or a Switch OLED? Switch 2.
I
just think it's so hard.
Right.
They don't call it Switch 2.
But to the point, though, right? Is there something else is there another name framing that they could use that they could iterate upon, not just more than once, that wouldn't be numbers that people would understand? Oh, that's the next thing.
They tried it with Wii U. Didn't work out so well. But yeah, I don't know what you could do, especially because they already have these, like you said, Switch Lite, Switch O, like that.
I mean, maybe Switch Alpha, Switch Beta, Switch Omega.
Oh, no.
Switch X.
Just use numbers. It's so simple. It's right in front of your face, Nintendo. You have a popular, well-known brand that's still selling well. Why? Just keep the brand going and just release the next one.
Why?
Switch Omega does sound cool, though, does it not?
It doesn't have to be cool.
If Furukawa is so smart and he's thinks differently and he's looking around the industry, why is he still hell-bent on referencing Revolution, changing the experience?
Because
Nintendo, just paying homage to the 80-year-olds in the boardroom, or
I know. I think it's because what he's trying to say is just because and maybe he's prefacing this because they're about to release an iterative system. Like, just because we're doing this doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to try to revolutionize things. And that's why I said that revolution could literally be they've been investing in VR and they're going to try to make the cheapest VR possible for people who already own a system. Because even PlayStation 2 VR, not cheap. You got to buy a PS5 and you got to spend like another $300-400.
Yeah,
you're almost 1,000 in. Plus, you got to buy a game.
Also, so they got the new PlayStation Portal.
The new PSP.
They revealed that. It looks disgusting.
So that's my thing is like Nintendo can find a way to revolutionize without having to necessarily put all their eggs in one basket.
I just don't know why the guy can't say we want to provide the best gaming experience for our consumers. Why does he say provide customers with a fresh and surprising experience? Why are those the words he chooses? Why is it not just the best gaming experience, the ultimate gaming?
Sony. That's a Sony thing to say.
But a Switch,
it's fresh and new, but it sucks.
And this guy doesn't make video games, so like he doesn't probably think in terms of making video games.
If we're honest, a Switch 2 that's more powerful is not fresh and surprising.
It would. You know what though? For Nintendo, it would be.
Okay, all right. That's
their big innovation is that they're not.
Come on, we went from motion controls to a tablet to 3D screens to detachable controllers, and now we're going to stick with that. Okay, cool.
By the way, I read through the article. I didn't see a release date, but it did say that they were expecting an unveiling in September, which was wrong. It ended up being October. Well, they obviously they weren't saying that it for sure was going to happen then, but that's kind of what they were hearing at the time. So, and it
Eric reference, by the way, they're the Nintendo Switch more. It's his last name.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well,
yeah.
What if I told you Nintendo already told us when Switch 2 is coming out? Because they said in that little thing, right? This is mostly.
I
a joke,
swear, if you're about 2023 again.
No. This is mostly a joke because I thought it was funny. So you mentioned they had like that little spreadsheet that said 20XX, and I was like, what letter, like what number letter in the alphabet is X? It's 24. So if you sub out the X, you can put in 2024. They told us 2 years ago it was coming.
That would have been funny if it comes up next year, and then it comes up in an interview that we subtly referenced that in the past. No,
I guess the other option here is that the Switch 2 isn't as viewed as a next generation as we want it to be or think it could be.
Maybe it really is just a Switch
Well,
Pro.
What if?
Yeah,
okay, so Nintendo's always had the two systems, right? Until now, obviously with Switch. What if they're like, look, we're going to keep the Switch going. We're going to lose the Switch 2. It's going to be that next generation, DLSS, whatever. However they market the damn thing. It's going to have a whole bunch of games. But they decided to release a separate VR device or something. We're just going to VR because that's like the one tech that we know Nintendo's messed around with. It hasn't really seen success. What if they release a standalone device that tries to be like the Meta Quest 2, but tries to undercut its price and provide Nintendo exclusive games on it? Like, what if it's like, hey, we're just going to have another device that's separate. We're not going to, because Furukawa keeps saying, well, you keep getting up here and then we fall off a cliff. Well, part of the reason you fall off a cliff is because you fundamentally abandon the audience you build. So why not keep that audience and then still try to revolutionize on the side with something new? And maybe that ends up being something you combine down the road at some point. But for now, you know, like it's kind of like, look at it like this. Like when they released the DS and they said it wasn't a replacement for the Game Boy, it's because they're like, okay, if this doesn't do well, we need to have another Game Boy come out. And they're like, well, let's just keep the Switch 2 going or Switch branding going. And I know they could say, well, just keep making Switch games and just keep doing that. But I sort of see, and maybe this is just me looking at the other companies because that's all I really have to go off of, because we don't know what this damn president's going to do because he's never released anything. He wasn't in charge when the Switch came out either. Like he's never released a new platform. So we don't really know his mindset. The only thing we know consistently is he says, we're always up here and then we go down here and we're going to stay up here. Well, I don't know how revolutionizing and which is fundamentally abandoning the audience that is still buying your games in record numbers is going to prevent you from going from up here to down. That literally sounds like we're going from here to down here again because this is what we do. And then we're going to find a new idea in the future to get back up to here. And I'm like, well, it just doesn't. It sounds like the opposite of what he's been preaching. But to your credit, Zach, we're Nintendo. We revolutionize. He's still parodying that, which is what Iwata used to say. So.
This fresh and new though may not always reference the hardware itself. I mean, look at what Breath of the Wild did to Zelda. Sure. Look what Mario Odyssey did to Mario. Sure. Look what
Kirby's
fresh and new. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean hardware. It could mean software. It could mean just the experience.
Nintendo
in and of itself.
Innovated with their games this generation. That's a really good point.
Yep.
Like Breath.
So,
yeah.
I mean, and maybe they fixed the Joy-Con drift by not even having controllers, and it's just another camera in the front that eye tracks, and you have a helmet that reads your mind.
So
that's simple.
We really focus on Nintendo's consoles, but I think we have to now consider that Nintendo's in more markets now. I would argue their Mario Kart ride is pretty revolutionary for rides at a theme park, and that's also technology that they invested in.
If I say, couldn't that just be the tech? Couldn't that just be the VR stuff that we're speculating about? And the VR stuff they put in for the Switch, it's just for the theme park.
Well, the VR. Okay, the reason I bring that up is the VR patents clearly show a video game system.
Yeah, I get that you were using it as like a connection or example, per se. But I remember, I think it was, I don't remember who brought it up, but like they did invest in that at some point. So.
Oh yeah, and they were going to keep investing in VR. I'm sure. Whether or not they release product, I mean, here's the thing: we got Labo VR, so we know they obviously care about VR because that's twice now they've attempted.
That's like Google Cardboard, though. You just take it.
Well, yeah, that was one of those. All our eggs isn't in one basket, and here you go. Except, okay, this maybe wasn't the best way to deliver VR. Yeah, you think something you have to hold to your head? You don't even include a strap.
Yeah, I just think
get it. I guess they just wanted kids not to keep it strapped to their heads and fall asleep with it or something.
I just think they did great with the Switch. Like the Switch was great for a lot of reasons, including facilitating more innovation. Sure. We got Nintendo Labo, we got Ring Fit Adventure, we got Game Builder Garage, we got Mario Kart Live Circuit. Like they kept doing these different things that the Switch was compatible with in different ways. I mean, heck, even Mario Party had like you could connect two different tablets together. So they had innovation. Labo was kind of a big deal for a little bit.
They made a big deal. They did a big marketing push for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I just wonder, like, maybe that's just what they should do. They should just make the Switch 2. It kind of goes back to like Nintendo's doing the parks or doing the movies. Like maybe they want something that's just really consistent and reliable. So there's always that core for the fans to go to, right? So I think in that sense, it actually makes more sense for them to do something that they know is going to work. Like, so I think what's most important is for them to establish a consistent foundation.
You know what we're not talking about though, and because we know like Xbox and PlayStation, right? I got them behind me. You know, it's mostly, hey, it feels like the last system but more powerful, or maybe there's a new feature you don't have here or something. But like you can't have Game Pass on Xbox 360 as an example. But I look at this and I go, those systems also have had something for a number of years, a paid online subscription. Nintendo now has a paid online service called Nintendo Switch Online. It is consistent yearly revenue that is growing for them, at least according to their own numbers. Every time they report it, it's a little bit higher, you know, a couple billion higher than it was the year before. And when you have a subscription service with recurring revenue, one that is sold on the basis of, say, even right now, their classic library of games, but you still have to be able to play those classic library games. So how crazy can you go away from a service that you're selling now? Because I almost feel like even then calling it the Nintendo Switch Online almost felt like, I know they can rebrand it anytime they want. That would be a totally Nintendo thing to rebrand NSO. But maybe it's because they view, hey, Switch is our future. That is going to be our new consistent brand. And this subscription service is going to carry forward, which I assume they're going to carry forward. By the way, when they said Nintendo accounts carry forward, they never mentioned NSO. I went back and rechecked that entire financial briefing. They don't mention NSO in terms of carrying forward. They mentioned Nintendo accounts. Important to note because Nintendo accounts aren't just on Switch. Ever play Mario Kart Tour or any of those games on here? Sign up for a Nintendo account.
Yeah,
that's why they got 200 million something Nintendo accounts. So they claim. So I think that when you have a recurring subscription thing as well, you have to be a little careful on revolutionizing because you can literally abandon everything people are paying for with that subscription service and lose subscribers as well. And I think part of that also keeps Xbox and PlayStation staying a little bit iterative. And he goes, hey, at some point, that's a really big money, billions a year. And Nintendo's service is starting to get a bit pricey if you start to look at the top packages. It used to be that little cheap thing you got for $12 a year. Well, it's not really that way anymore. It's actually getting quite pricey, and people are paying for access to play online games, and they're paying for access to classic games, and obviously cloud save data backup. And I just think if they're going to carry that forward to the next system, then you can't go so wonky that suddenly it's like, oh, remember all those NSO games that you could play? Well, now we're all in VR with full motion controls. You can't play any of them anymore. Well, I know that I'm like, I'm not going to say they're not going to do anything with it because when we talk about Switch, we talk about how successful it is. It has a function on it, by the way, that basically is never used. The IR camera, something they added as an idea that they barely use. And I think maybe there could be something like that where they have some sort of additional feature that's more like an optional that if they decide one day they can do something cool with it, cool. If they can't, it just won't be the primary selling point. Sort of like HD Rumble, really neat idea, but most developers didn't really use it that well. Maybe it's some, I wouldn't be surprised. They're like, we just created Rock Rumble. Well, what is it? Oh yeah, when you touch it now, you could feel a rock in there. Okay. Thought I could feel Dyson ice cubes before. I'm confused. But like I can see Nintendo like trying to make a big deal out of some new feature like that. Like let's say they add, the adaptive triggers or whatever the heck these things are called on PlayStation, or something like that where you can feel the tension of a bow. You think they're going to describe it the way Sony does? Oh no, they'll come out and be like, you can hold the controller sideways like this, put your two fingers like this, and you're playing a violin or something like that, or a harp. And you could feel each string pull as you pull it back with motion control. Like you can see Nintendo describing it in such a Nintendo way that you're like, this looks so ridiculous. And then literally halfway through, we click on and we're just playing Mario, and none of that even mattered in the first place. But like I could see Nintendo trying to market some new wonky, like remember they marketed the hell out of HD Rumble and that IR camera. You could eat sandwiches and milk cows, and it's like, okay, cool. But literally none of that is why your system sold well. But you still marketed the hell out of it and created a lot of memes, and it was wonderful. So I could see them like trying to come up with some new feature that they can market in some crazy wonky way. But at the end of the day, it's still basically just a system that you're going to play with traditional controls that is more powerful. It just has games that the other system can't have. And I think that is a big selling point. And that includes Nintendo, because looking at Nintendo's games, I think there are some games you can point to and see, man, they really hit the limits, huh? Like Tears of the Kingdom. Amazing, wonderful. But you pay close enough attention, they're using a lot of tricks. And they really probably hit the limit of what they can do. It even feels like there's stuff they wanted to go beyond that maybe they couldn't do because of the limitations of Switch. I'm not going to go into Scarlet and Violet because that's a whole different conversation about.
That's just.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that because that game should look and play and feel much better than it does.
Lack of tricks.
Yeah, I'm not even going to blame Switch on that one. I mean, I'm not saying that a more powerful system would have made it easier for them. Of course it would have, but I don't know. I'm going to leave that one alone.
Maybe we're overcomplicating or over reading into this revolutionize how we play. And maybe it is something really simple as, we're just going to throw haptic feedback in the Joy-Cons and the Pro Controller and that's it.
It could be.
That's how I interpreted it.
And that's it.
Headphone jack on there. Oh.
Like, oh yeah, we added a headphone jack to the Pro Controller. That would revolutionize for me.
No, here's what it wouldn't be though. It would be like, look, we put a headphone jack on, and when you put the headphones on in combination with our new improved HD Rumble Plus, you get a completely immersive experience. And they just show you like touching the controller, and suddenly it's like you're shaking Mario's hand in a game or something with the audio blasting from all directions with 3D. Like Nintendo is going to market it in some way that just sounds insane and is clearly likely not even true. And we're just going to go, okay, cool. But in the end, is that 3D Mario game look pretty sick, guys? Because that's all we're going to be talking about.
Actually, correction. They won't put a headphone jack on there. They'll do what Xbox does and have that weird, like Xbox specific port on the bottom of their thing, so you can just plug a whole thing in. And they won't have a headphone jack, so that way you have to buy this specific Nintendo brand.
They do have a headphone jack as well. Now that I'm looking at it,
yeah, Nintendo wouldn't do that though. That's too easy.
They have both, is what I'm saying. Kudos to Xbox. You actually gave us both.
Dongles all the way.
Let's think about something for a moment.
Oh, I know how they can make it look different too. By the way, this never gets talked about. I brought it up one time. What's another signifying system? We all think of like the Switch, right? We use it in our thumbnails and stuff. We got the Switch OLED. But you know what's also a signifying thing, just from a marketing perspective? The damn dock. If they just fundamentally change the way the dock looks and feels, it's already going to look like a new product.
Revolutionize the way we play by putting cartridge slots in the dock.
Or like what you mentioned in one of the previous episodes is make it like the dock has hardware in itself that just makes it look better when you play docked. I mean, it could literally be that simple. I mean, you never know.
Includes an extra fan.
So let's try and go at this from a slightly different angle. When we had the Wii U, right, I remember a common sentiment was, man, it'd be great if I could take this more than 10 feet away from the console. So what did they do?
I had it plugged in my hallway so I could use it in the bathroom. I'm weird like that. I don't know.
But I kind of understand,
though,
right?
Based.
Like
I did because like I wanted a console game while if I'm going to be on the job for 20 minutes, dude, I had some Chipotle. It's going to be a bit. I need my Wii U. Come on.
My point is, though, there was something about the Wii U where, like, wow, there are certain things that you're like, I wish this was better. I wish we could do this with this, right? Even with the 3, I wish the resolution was a little bit higher. I wish there was a second control stick, right? And those things became things for the Switch, right? Because it went in the same direction with both. Is there something about the Switch that were like, man, I really wish they did this? Like, this would naturally
better control sticks. That's about the only thing besides power. Better control. That's literally it. I'm tired of every set of Joy-Con I've owned have drifted at one point or another. Every set of them. That's it. That's the only thing I really have a major complaint about. Otherwise, everything else for me with Switch.
Audio jacks, as makes sense.
Yeah, audio jacks, I suppose.
Or just have I mean, they do have Bluetooth support now, right? So we can technically use Bluetooth headsets.
And I use wireless headphones anyway. So like, for me, that's really was the big thing with Bluetooth, and they added that. So honestly, like you bring up that point that every system we played, it always felt like, oh, there's something else we want without some crazy accessory. They released that Monster Hunter when we had to get the extra control stick on 3DS for Monster Hunter. You didn't have to, but it was an extra accessory. and I think it was usable.
The boat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the boat. Yeah. So you're sort of right that on both, like on Wii U, it was very obvious. I would like to have this thing not tied down to 10 feet, right? I mean, that was a common thing with people who had it. And then obviously with 3DS, it was like, oh, we'd like a better control stick than a slider, but if we have a slider, we'd like two. We don't have two.
There is something that comes to mind for me.
What's that something? For me, it's just more power.
And I just want to put this in perspective. It's not so much like the obvious things. It's just like as you're playing, like those kind of like random thoughts that come up. Oh, I wish I could do this, right? Like some things that you're kind of almost like subconsciously inclined to want to do, but you can't because of limitations of the system. Something that I have been inclined to do on Switch but haven't been able to do is sometimes I'm playing it, say like in portable mode, and I'm in the living room with my family or friends, and I just want to show them, right? I could just get up and plop it in, but what if you could just be like, oh, let me show you, right? And so like maybe there could be times where you could send maybe like certain messages or imagery to the dock. Maybe like there could be multiple switches that connect to a single dock or something like that, which wouldn't be like necessarily like a major innovation. It might be just like a neat little thing they could do if the dock had some like Bluetooth capability, so you could sync multiple docks or maybe send some sort of imagery to the dock itself. Because it would be weird to just cast to that when you could just plop it in.
I mean, wireless people laugh. Wireless HDMI is a thing. It does exist.
Actually, that would be kind of neat, but also why?
Well, what if this is the thing? It's a dock. Remember that one fan like, mock-up with the switch up here and a little thing down here, and you set the switch on top of it.
Wireless charging too?
Face up. Yeah, it's like a little charging dock. But what if that was also the new dock and it just wirelessly transmits to your TV instead of you even needing a wire? And that's Nintendo's thing, is like we're a full wireless system. All you need to do is plug in power.
Not that innovative.
That's it. But I mean, it's not a crazy. You say they're not that innovative. They're the company that gives us glasses free 3D. Granted, it existed in other, but like they would be the ones to be like, no one's even thought about trying to use wireless HDMI. We're gonna do it. Of course, the complaints are gonna be when it doesn't work, and we're gonna hear a bunch of horror stories. Day one, I'm sure, but maybe it's optional. Maybe they also let you, like, it's an optional thing. Like you could physically plug in a wire. So that's like their solution. Hey, if you want to be wireless, we give it to you. But if for some reason it's not working, we also give you an HDMI cable for you to plug in. An optional feature like the IR camera. If you developers want to use it, cool. If not, I don't know. I literally just had that pop in my mind because I watched the video the other day. Like wireless HDMI does technically exist and does work.
I think the Joy-Con should have better S buttons, the SL and SR buttons for when you're in co-op mode.
They do put the slide thing on.
Yeah,
but without the slidey thing.
Yeah.
Well then, how are you gonna slide it onto your Switch?
With a better design.
Make it bigger. Just make it bigger.
Right, like you can
bigger.
Yeah, they don't
That's
have
what
to do...
Apple did. We're gonna keep making the comparison to Apple. Apple just made the iPhone bigger, and then it eventually got massive, and now they're making it smaller.
I mean, the Joy-Cons
an 8-inch screen. They are making it bigger.
Joy-Cons can be a lot better. Right, there's like barely any ergonomics to them. Like they could get rid of that dumb IR camera thing. That's never used.
What is it? The like the
they probably won't if they want to keep compatibility with all
the Hori pad. The third
Switch
party
Lite doesn't have it.
Those are great.
Yeah, I suppose Switch Lite. There's actually some games you can't play on Switch Lite.
Right. Well, I mean, if the Switch 2, I don't think like if the Switch 2 is equally as compatible to Switch as Switch Lite is, I think that's fine considering Switch Lite is a Switch that doesn't switch.
I remember making so much fun. I'm like, are you serious right now? This is what you couldn't allow this little thing to look. Don't put the dock in the box, but at least sell like a mini dock for it or something, right? You could buy. Nope, not even an option. So many people were mad that it wasn't even an optional accessory.
Maybe that's how they revolutionize. Is they do another Switch Lite, the Switch Lite 2, Switch 2 Lite. I don't know, and
Switch XL OLED.
Too light for
edition.
me.
They have a little dock that you can buy, because then, in theory, you'd also have to buy a Pro Controller, which most people who have a Lite may or may not have already. But then there's 2 extra accessories, and people have to buy them. and then you can put it on the TV, and you can still get your little budget Switch. But by the time you put all the money together and realize how much you spent, you could have just bought the Switch too.
All right.
I think probably the best answer is probably the most boring one, which is that Furukawa seems like someone that likes to keep things close to his chest. We haven't heard about Metroid in forever. We got a Mario game announcement 3.5 months before it's out. We didn't know anything about the second half of the year for half the year. And maybe this is just his BS way of keeping people at bay until, they are ready to
Everyone's talking about
it.
Fine, I'll throw something out there. This is just typical Nintendo
Give him a
philosophy.
bone.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Oh, we're always worried that people aren't going to buy our games. Oh, we're always trying to revolutionize, but not a novelty. And I do find the fact that he mentioned not a novelty just so interesting. It's almost like he recognizes, sometimes we've just done things to do things, not because it actually...
We're going to say...
Like, we thought Wii U gamepad was going to be this revolution. It really was. Our own developers didn't even want to use this damn thing. Why did we even? Miyamoto, why? That's why Miyamoto was tasked towards the end of the generation. You need to prove why we had this thing. So he's forced it into everything. And then outside of Star Fox Guard, it really wasn't a great idea. Well, I will defend Star Fox Guard, though. That was a good game and a good use of the gamepad.
So good.
I would
So
like
was Zombie U. Zombie U was
on
really
Switch.
good with it, too. Yeah.
What'd you say, Zach? I didn't hear you.
Star Fox Guard is so good that it's one of the only Nintendo franchises that didn't make it to Switch.
Well, I mean, it might not be able to work fundamentally because you need two screens.
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? This is total copium hopium. Could you imagine if they did do a VR system and they made a Star Fox VR game where it's like you're sitting in the R Wing and that's how you play it?
That would be a perfect.
It's never
VR
going to
game.
happen.
That would be sweet.
That
would be a way to get me interested in the VR.
Throw a Metroid VR.
Really,
game
it's just going to be Mario Tennis.
Tried
and true.
Tennis,
you know what?
If
they move all their sports games over to VR,
I mean, it'd be interesting.
And they actually, and they're like the games today, where they all play really well. Like the gameplay isn't really what people complain about; it's the content. And they just go, "We have amazing gameplay in VR, but the content's kind of lacking." I think people will actually be okay with it in VR because they would maybe so enthralled with the gameplay being great. It'd be like Wii Sports all over again. Okay, there's not really a lot here. You're just playing a sport.
But
man, it's fun.
Really got to hit the VR tech out of the park because, like,
yeah,
you can. They're like, it can easily be awful and it not work. So they really got to get that solid before anything else.
I also wonder if they might not go with VR because now, like, the way that Apple's doing the VR thing, I know it's super expensive and hardly anyone's going to own the damn thing. But it's like the first time they showed something and then people tried it out that they're like, oh, so this is where this is going. This is actually really, really awesome. And I think Nintendo might look at that and other stuff and go like, we need to somehow be the first to do something like that, but at a budget. And how do we do that? And I don't know if the tech is there really to do that yet at a budget, but because Nintendo, they like to do right place, right time. I don't know that, like when I think about VR, and it is, look, VR has a community. I wouldn't say it's a growing community, but it does have a community. There are people that really enjoy VR, and that is totally fine. My kids really enjoy it, as an example. It's fine. Yeah, VR's neat. And I'll say this. My kids don't watch the podcast. I can just say that they're getting a VR headset for Christmas. And who's going to use it the most? This guy, because I'm going to be playing Beat Saber as one of my workouts every single day.
I got him the VR.
I love Beat Saber. I'm going to be using it for one of my daily workouts, and it's neat. But I don't know that this is like right time to try to popularize it. I just don't. I don't quite think the technology is at a point and at an affordability point to. And I think the vision thing sort of shows it that like this is where it's going. We're not really at the right point to popularize the medium in a way that Nintendo did with motion controls and stuff. So I just feel like that probably won't be the thing, even though they are investing in it. I just don't know what the thing's going to be if there is a thing, and if there is a thing, then.
This kind of counters what I was saying earlier, but I'm trying to bring myself back down to earth of maybe there isn't anything significant.
Have hopium that we're getting an iterative system, Zach, if that's what you
want. I mean, if we believe the train of thought that the OLED was supposed to be the Pro, there's no way in 2 years, 3 years that they were able to design some crazy new VR type system and about face. So maybe it is just going to be what we want it to be, that would be great.
I want you guys to change in your videos where you start to go, you know what? Maybe Nintendo is going to be iterative.
Maybe I would love that. I mean, I think if Furukawa can deliver, then we can look forward to the best era of Nintendo, because then we say we have power and we have game design at its pinnacle right now from Nintendo. This somehow is going to be better than the Switch. And if Furukawa is the guy to usher that in because he says, hey, Sony does it, we can too, then more power to him. And
I also think the market Nintendo's in, like you brought up all the handheld PCs gaming stuff before. You know, I was looking at the sales figures that are available for some of this stuff, and the Steam Deck is by far and away the best selling of them all. But like when you look at the Steam charts and how many people are playing games on Steam Deck, it's still like less than 1 million people playing.
Yeah, it's very small.
So like it's not that big. We're at a system with 130 million people. There really isn't anything competing with it. It's basically is in its own market. So that's another thing too, is where every time Nintendo has made a change, it's when they sort of either lost the market they have, or because they can't compete in the same market as somebody else for whatever the reasons were. Obviously, what led to the GameCube not being able to compete as directly with PS2, it's a long, winding tale of releases and decisions along the way that led to that. But when they did Wii, they had that lightning in the bottle, but it quickly died out because, hey, guess what? Everyone else adapted motion controls. Oh, and by the way, now it's moving into VR where it actually makes more sense. And people are now buying HD TVs, and now they don't really want things to look so blurry when they're playing more serious games. And so Nintendo sort of lost that market. DS, I think they kind of lost that market just to phones. People forget it came out before smartphones were popular. Yep. I think it's just the way it, like the whole touchscreen gaming, it was so cool and people loved it, and it was used in a ton of games. Nintendogs is an example. People love that game. It sold so many copies, but these devices, the smartphones, started getting popular, and now it's not nearly as impressive as it once was. So now Nintendo doesn't really have that market to themselves. They're sharing that touch market with a more popular and growing avenue with tablets and phones. And now they have this market where, yeah, they're still sharing. You can argue they're sharing it with these PC handhelds, sure, to a degree. But Nintendo still has things those PC handhelds don't. There's exclusive games. There's exclusive PC games. Absolutely. There's probably more exclusive PC games. How many of them are marketed like that? Is Steam Deck out there pushing some mass? Am I seeing a commercial for an exclusive for Steam Deck anywhere? How about a poster at a game store? How about, like they're not pushing exclusive games because none of these systems own them. Technically, Valve owns games, but we're not going to get into the sadness that Valve doesn't really release that many new games. It's sort of sad. Valve, you have a lot of really good IP. Come on now. Go back to making games. It'd be nice. Don't be scared of the number 3. Sorry. I'm sorry. Am I hurting some Valve fans? I'm really sorry. I don't know why they're so afraid of the number 3.
This was a Nintendo podcast.
Because these are like the competitors, but none of them have really taken off, I think, to the degree they thought they might. And I think Valve really thought Steam Deck would be like a really big, like, we're going to do what Switch does, but better. And like we have Steam, we have a forever library. And it never really caught on to the level that maybe they hoped, hence why they had so many that they were just giving away. Let me tell you, who's not giving away systems? Nintendo, Sony, or Xbox for that matter, because they're selling the systems they make. So I do think that Nintendo's still sort of in its own market, and I don't feel like they feel, at least again, this is just speculation, but the way Furukawa's been behaving seems that he has mentioned that he's a little worried about the transition and stuff, which they have to be. Nintendo has dropped the ball at so many next generation transitions that you can't help but be nervous when you're moving off of something this successful. And I don't think Sony ever really behaves in a nervous way publicly. But this is a new president who's never had to transition. So I get this feeling that Nintendo has learned. We now have a subscription service. We now have Bluetooth audio, which should have been there at launch. Didn't happen until Furukawa came along. We now have region free, which was something we didn't have before, but it's not become a selling point. I know they've been cracking down a little bit on it lately. That was more sort of crashing economies. I think, to be honest, I don't think that they were completely unreasonable with that. Look, when your currency value drops that quickly in a week, guys, they could buy Tears of the Kingdom for $5 USD at one point last week in Argentina. for $5 USD.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad the economy crashed. So it's like, no. At some point, they're just going to be like, we have to stop this. And I think they'll lift those restrictions if the peso there ever bounces back. So I think that's just paying attention to ebbs and flows of economies. But Nintendo, I think we've just seen so many. Oh yeah, this makes sense. Oh, now we have a subscription service. Oh, now we're offering our classic games just like the other platforms do. Oh, now we're pushing online play like the other platforms. Oh, now we have cloud save backups. Guess who has those? Xbox. They're starting to do more and more of what gamers expect, while also being in a avenue that nobody else is really in, and that is the hybrid system. Even when we talk about these handheld PCs, you know what those handheld computers never talk about? Docking and playing on your monitor with a mouse and keyboard. They always just talking about take your PC. It's an accessory to a PC. It's the PS Vita to the PlayStation.
And maybe it's important to point out that Nintendo's eggs aren't all in the video game basket anymore, so they don't need that to be this company-defining wonderkind anymore. Like it can be iterative, and we still have movies and theme parks and wherever else they decide to go. We don't need it to be this showpiece of our genius.
It's everything.
We can just have it be the Switch too.
And that's why I said the technology stuff could be about the rides. I mean, think about this. Think about some of the reports we've seen out there about the Donkey Kong ride coming out. And like how they're going to have tracks that move and fake jumps that just look insane. And no other rides ever really had this before.
Cool.
That's pretty innovative.
I'm very
in technology for a ride, and I can't wait. It's going to be crazy.
Think about Disney. Like, you know how Disney, like you look at like all the innovations they have with their rides and stuff. Like, what if Nintendo is just Disney 2.0?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in a good way.
Certain things that their company just sort of stay consistent that you can rely upon. Some things are consistent. Other things are just inventive, and that's awesome. It's one thing I like about Disney. Like you can rely on a certain level of consistency with some things. Like I'll give an example. I don't know. This is kind of a bad example because everyone's got all their. You could consistently think that the live action Disney movies suck. It's pretty consistent popular opinion online. I don't agree with it with every single one, but fine. I also don't agree with some people that say that their quality on their animated films has gone down. I really like their animated films every single time. Like all of them are good. Not all of them are going to hit the success of Frozen, but not everyone likes Frozen either.
I like the new Star Wars movies, like kind of.
Yeah, like they do some good stuff. Like I'm gonna say this, like for everything that people yell about,
get him out of here.
Like for everyone who gets mad about the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the movies, I gotta say those Disney Plus shows, they're actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, Disney Plus.
The Disney Plus shows are. Yeah. Even Mandalorian, like I don't know what it is. Whoever's doing these shows, why aren't they doing the movies? Because
Dave Filoni.
Like damn, like dude,
he did the Clone Wars.
Who's a Marvel fan and not excited for the Loki 2 season coming up? I mean,
I'll be honest. Yeah. I'm a big Marvel guy. Loki is all I'm looking forward to. I could care less about anything.
Well, dude, Loki season, that first season was so great.
I was thinking, and
he had all the build up from the prior movies. Oh.
I actually canceled my Disney Plus membership recently because I've been paying for it for like the last 2 years
and not using it. Yeah,
the last time I used it was when I watched Loki. So
yeah, and Loki season 2 is coming. So
I'm about to cancel ours.
I haven't watched the new season of Mandalorian yet either. I'm gonna watch that.
Our Disney Plus expires in November, and we're not renewing it. So like right now, I'm binging through a bunch of stuff that I haven't watched that I want to watch. Right now. And I'm like, oh, gotta get
she borrowed my account like 2 months ago, and then she's like, oh, because she's got a little kid and stuff, and another one on the way. So like they're starting to get her children into Disney movies, and I'm like, that's cool. Well, I don't want it anymore. Oh, I'll just keep paying for it. Okay, cool. I'll just watch it when I want. I don't gotta worry about it anymore. But anyways, it is interesting to think of Nintendo as maybe literally becoming a lot more like Disney now. Like they have movies.
Yeah,
might have TV shows one day. They definitely have obviously the video game avenue and that's been like one of their core pillars, but now they have the theme parks, and the theme parks are expanding, and plans for future and more expand to the point that the Nintendo part of the Universal parks might end up being the biggest part of the whole damn park. So, and that's probably good for Universal because I don't remember people talking about their parks too much in a long time.
Yeah.
Like they haven't had any. I was trying to, because I love theme parks, and that was always the one that didn't seem like they were adding a lot of new stuff very often until they got this Nintendo deal done. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
I just kind of think that like going back to like the whole gimmick Switch 2 or lack thereof, I really kind of feel that we are headed towards a Switch 2, if that's the name they choose or not. But
probably not.
you know,
I just
well,
please, but it won't.
What
be.
else would they
Please.
call it? If
I don't.
There's no major gimmick. What else are they going to call it?
They might just call it Switch 4K. Well, that's got a number still. I guess they call it Switch 4K. I only bring that up because they said Switch OLED, and I never thought that they would use a technology to brand and advertise. I mean, have they ever done that before? I mean,
They've had
3D with
64.
3DS. Yeah, 64 bits.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 3DS is.
Yeah. So I said 3DS 3D.
Play on words.
Nintendo
right?
Switch haptic. They just really lean into the haptic feedback.
That's why I'm like, I guess they could call it Switch 4K, but the more do you go with the next one if they do another one? Switch 8K? Like,
maybe.
Okay.
Switch 3.
No, Switch 120 because it's going to be 100.
Oh, here we go. Just like it was supposed to be Xbox 720, and then they said Xbox One. Like what? Wait, what?
No, I meant like just like for the frames, but
yeah.
I think Switch Pro is still really possible.
I think so
sure.
too.
I mean, I don't think you could throw it out. Keeps it, keep it in the family, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't throw it out. Yeah.
Is there any way they could justify a new console being part of the same generation so they just keep that number?
Oh, they might act like it's part of the same generation.
Yeah, they'll call it Switch Color.
Oh my!
Because that's what they did with the color.
But it can't be Switch Color because they're supposedly getting rid of the OLED screen.
Look, it's gonna have an 8-inch screen. It's just gonna be called the Switch Big Boy.
Switch Black and White.
Big baby.
The big
baby. Here it is.
The big Switch.
The biggest Switch. That's it.
They could recycle Advance. Switch Advance would be okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
like
Super the problem I hear with like Super Switch or like Switch Advance is always, well, then this is it. This is the last generation of this.
Oh, but Game Boy managed to do what? Game Boy Advance,
and
SP sort of.
SP was still same generation. It was like their OLED, their improved version of itself. But you think about it though, that's just like, okay, so they went Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and then moved to DS. They just
okay.
Where do you go from there? Super Nintendo. Okay, Nintendo 64. Not really an advancement on Super Nintendo. It's sort of something different. And then GameCube. Just okay. Why? Okay, cool.
Maybe. What if they're so confident in their brand name that they can just say it's the new Switch? Like, what if they don't want to?
Well, that's one thing I said. Like, how strong is the Switch brand? Like, if you think about a lot of brands, they were sort of dying by the end of the system. Is the Switch brand any less relevant today?
It's pretty relevant. It's about as relevant as you could expect a 7-year-old system, 6.5.
I mean, it's just the second best selling system, and it almost caught up to PlayStation 5 last month.
Yeah,
which is the new system.
I got an idea. Switch 2.0.
Here we go. They just do it like their updates.
It's kind of the same idea as Zach. Like it's a Switch.
It's different.
It's a Switch. But the 2.0 moniker is just, hey, this is next
People
gen,
would understand it.
You still call it a Switch. But so it's Switch 2.0 because it's next gen.
Yeah, and it'll have a completely different looking box and different marketing material and everything. And yeah, there'll probably be a few. Like I think there'll be. You guys think there's got to be some design philosophy changes. Like I could see if they want to make like old Joy-Con forward compatible. But like if they still have detachable controllers, I feel like the new ones would look a little different. Or maybe I'm way off base and Nintendo.
I think they will. I think they will.
Yeah, it differentiates. It just gives it a different. That's why we see like some of those Switch 2 designs where they have the extended handles like a normal controller. It's just to make it look different. It just makes it stand out from what the old one was, while still basically being this similar design concept. Of course, I don't know how the handles work with using them sideways, but I'm not saying the handles are going to be what makes it look different. I'm just saying, like, I don't really know how that works with the whole. I don't know. My kids were just using split Joy-Cons today playing Mario Kart, so like it was a good idea to have the 2 instant controllers for friends. But
could also throw in those different Joy-Con colors that are exclusive to the new one that make you want to buy it. Give us actual. Do we have actual purple Joy-Cons, like solid purple. That isn't the.
Wasn't there?
I know there's like the Splatoon one.
Wasn't there a
orange?
Well, no, that was blue.
I'm talking like, like the Switch 2 mock-up that's like the somewhat pastel purple.
Yeah,
and it's the one that has the little grips on the bottom. I'm talking like that color purple.
Yeah, it's more like a GameCube.
Yeah,
color purple. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, we have a pastel purple and green.
There's a purple and orange.
Yeah, there's a purple and orange pair.
There's a lot of damn Joy-Cons.
But like, I don't know if there's just straight purple. There's some that third party ones, obviously, but yeah, there was never a purple, just a plain purple set that released.
Give us, you know what? Here's what I want from Switch 2. Give us some more color variety for the Pro controller. I don't want I like the plain black controller, and I like the different versions for the different games. But I want
why don't they give us more? Why don't they give us like the
white,
Xbox thing where you can
blue.
customize controllers?
Yeah, I mean these little grippers down here look like they could come off, or maybe you could pop this face plate off.
You can switch out the grips technically if you unscrew the screws.
Yeah, it's like
on the
one
bottom,
screw. Yeah,
and switch them out. They make third-party ones that are different color.
Yeah.
I'll make a little prediction. The biggest change for Switch 2 is in the UI.
Ooh.
Please.
That could be a big differentiator. The UI just looks entirely different.
Yeah, the innovation is that there won't be a UI.
It's physical only now, through digital, and we're back to insert cart, hit power, cha-ching, game loads.
There you go.
But what changes do you want in the UI, Zach?
I mean, themes, a better eShop, just a more modernized, look and feel to everything. I think they could. I mean, there's that one real goofy mock-up where they make it more interactive. The guy that came out and said, like, "Oh, I just did this as a design product."
Oh yeah,
the project where the cartridge goes in and things move. I mean, I think they could put it up a little bit. I guess in my head, I would like to think that maybe the Switch 2 is the DS Lite to the original clamshell DS, and maybe the Joy-Con are better. There's no drift. It's a cleaner system. It's more ergonomic, and it just looks and feels better. And maybe that's enough. Like you throw 3D Mario on there, and maybe that's enough.
Well, and I do think
I just hope they think it's
well. And one thing to consider now, this compared to prior systems, all their games are on one system now. So unlike before, their consistent game output should just stick around.
Yeah.
So
that's all they need.
When you have, it's not going to be Zelda and Mario in the first year again.
Could be.
It could be a top down. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they have a 3D Zelda ready to go in 2025. And now we're pulling some Wind Waker shenanigans out of nowhere after Twilight Princess. If they're, anyways, the point is they're gonna have I think they're gonna have a really solid first year lineup, just like they did. Well, I mean, it was more than solid in 2017. And that's one thing to consider is that their games do sell systems. And I think for them, it's just the system just needs to be appealing, and the rest will sort of take care of itself as long as Nintendo brings the quality games and the innovation to the games and keep making games people want. Like, as an example, there's been all this debate about the next Mario Kart game and what are they going to do after. You know what? That's for Nintendo to worry about. And when they wow us, when they drop 9 or 10 or X or whatever the hell they call this thing, universe, whenever they drop it, I bet you we're going to look at it and go, dude, they did it again. How does Nintendo keep doing it? Like, I could see Zach opening the video, Nintendo, they did it again. How do they keep doing this? We thought we reached the pinnacle. Because it's just what Nintendo's been doing lately. Like, every time a new game comes out, like, oh, they can't do Splatoon 3 after 2. They did it again. Like, Nintendo just keeps finding ways to excite people with their games, and
they keep getting away with it.
How do they keep getting away with just making games we want to buy all the time? The only thing I will say I don't know how they keep getting away with is why is it the same? Can we not have the same holiday bundle for 6 years? I mean,
well, we'll see. I'll throw out
Nintendo.
This idea.
You can bundle other games for the holidays. It's okay.
So, I mean, we kind of mentioned earlier how maybe they're going to kind of focus on innovating their games, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if? And you also just throw out the idea of Zelda coming out 2025, which is If we're talking about the next 3D Zelda is insane.
Okay, well, Zach
But-
kind of threw that.
I was
don't
talking top down more. I was talking like a
Yeah, a top down from like
Oh, okay.
Grezzo or something could.
Yeah,
entirely
that's
not-
conceivable.
entirely
But
possible.
But hear me out here for a second. What if one of the big innovations with Switch 2 isn't something
God.
that we see at face value as a consumer, but it's something that's more of an innovation for developers, where it's just so much more efficient to use, it's just so much more powerful that a lot of the challenges that developers had for Switch, they won't have on Switch 2. Maybe one of the reasons Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom took so long because they needed to get the game to work with all the crazy physics at hand. What if Switch 2 has the kind of hardware and dev units in place and whatever other tools are needed so they can make another game like Tears of the Kingdom with a brand new world and art style in less than 6 years? Maybe it only takes them 3 to 4 years. That'd be a pretty big innovation, wouldn't it?
What happens if developers are so happy with the hardware that they start to just choose to make more exclusives for the system? Because they see how well like a Monster Hunter did when it was exclusive, and they're like, you know what? This has enough power, we can realize our vision there. Why don't we drop an exclusive From Software game on here? Just see what happens. It would be timed exclusive if it doesn't sell well.
Dude. Actually, From Software, Star Fox.
Oh, don't.
Oh, come
Don't.
on.
Don't.
Look what they did with Armored Core.
Armored Core
Right?
6,
Like,
yeah.
like if they can do that, they
Yeah.
can totally make a Star Fox.
Oh, they
game.
totally could. Anyways, we go round and round on this because there's a lot of hopes and dreams around a system that we basically just know exists, and that's about it. And we're really happy dev units are out there, of course, and I'm sure we'll get some more, leaks or whatever it is by the end of the year. But I don't know what we ask this question. I feel like every 3 weeks. When are they unveiling this damn thing? Because at some point, I'm just kind of tired of talking about leaks. I would like to just be like, can we?
To Zach's point of keeping the cards close to the chest,
Yeah.
2
months before release.
I'm not even. Yeah, I shitting you not. It probably
Mm-hmm.
won't happen. It'll happen like a season before. So
I swear, if the shadow
if
drop
it's
it,
gonna-
shadow drop it.
that'd be
Today's Nintendo Direct.
sick.
Go
I
buy
would
this
fuck with the
today.
shadow drop so much.
I think it's
would
got to be
fuck
the
with
June
that.
Direct for an October launch.
That's,
Prediction.
Yeah,
Okay.
or November launch.
That's
or
a really
whatever.
short time too.
I got a prediction for you guys, and I'm prepared for this to be wrong, but I'm just throwing out the idea. There will not be a February Nintendo Direct. There will just be a mini. I don't even know if it'll be in February.
I can see that. If they're
Are
gonna,
you talking like?
if the Switch shit happens, yeah.
No, here's what's gonna happen.
There'll be a
It's
mini,
gonna-
and then
they're
they'll have
gonna
a
launch it
presentation
in
a little bit
summer.
later.
They're gonna launch it in summer, so there won't be a February Direct because they announced in February a date to unveil their next system in March. Just like they pre-announced the Switch.
They still got
announcement.
to have a Direct for Metroid Prime 4 in February.
I mean, do they? They didn't for Bayonetta 3. They just said, "Here you go."
Well,
Well,
wow,
I mean,
Bayonetta 3 sells about the same as Metroid. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, Metroid sells a little better than Bayonetta.
I mean, if there's a Switch 2 launch or not launch but reveal event, they could reveal Prime 4.
What if they're just revealing Prime 4 next month?
They might.
And we got
made a video on it
They
yesterday.
could just do social media trailer drops and all that all the way to the release.
They might. Yeah.
Take care of it right there. Maybe it's a March game next year. You ever think that, huh? Huh?
What?
Huh?
It might
Metro
be.
Prime?
That's,
Prime 4? Maybe the drop
I
it
know
early
it's
next
got to
year.
be closer to the
It's
next
coming. It's
system.
happening.
No, we all know
Yeah.
the March game next year is going to be Luigi's Mansion because it's a safe bet.
I don't know.
Make
I'm making a
that
bet right
money.
now. We're getting Metroid Prime revealed next month. Metro Prime 4. And it's releasing in first half of next year. Putting it down. Locking it in. I don't know what the bet is. What happens if I lose?
Shave your head.
You have to eat a ghost pepper or a Carolina
hot
Reaper,
nut.
whichever one.
Like, I
Hot
almost like
nut.
the pepper idea more than the shaving my head.
See,
Um,
when I say shave your head, that means your whole head.
I know it means me go bald, which means you
No,
will
no, no,
never
no,
see
no,
me
no.
without a
He,
hat.
he means
No, no,
his
no.
beard too.
I mean,
Oh.
the beard,
Oh, the beard's okay. I can take
Mustache.
that off.
the eyebrows,
Oh.
the lashes, all of it.
Look, I just had this debate with somebody who asked me how much it would cost for me to ever do that. Like if someone donated, and I was like, I don't know, $5,000. And they're like, dude, I'll give you $1,000. I'm like, no. $5. So like a little bet like this ain't worth me shaving it all off. Holy crud.
I'm saying pepper. You have the pepper,
pepper?
right there
Mhm.
when you're live reacting to the direct. If it doesn't
Oh.
happen immediately after the direct, you go full cam and you eat the pepper right there.
Oh my god.
I remember when I was
Okay.
wrong about Tears of the Kingdom
you know
release
what? I
time.
like that idea because that is not like, oh, I'm punishing myself in the future. No, it's happening live when Metro, because the bet is not only that Metro Prime 4 is there, that it releases first. So if it's there, I'm safe for the moment.
So you're gonna be like crying in joy of how amazing it looks, but they're gonna be like holiday 2024. So you're like,
they say holiday 2024. I'm gonna be like,
with...
nope, I gotta eat it because I said first half.
Yeah.
Okay, but if they just announce it without it and then just say 2024, I'm like, okay, I'm safe for now. Let's see what happens at the next direct.
Does he eat the pepper after they reveal it or after the direct is over?
Well, look, if it's not revealed at all, I already lost. Even if it releases first half, I already lost because the bet would be that it was revealed next month and releases first half. It's a two-prong.
You might not even know. What if they just say 2024? It could still release.
Yeah, no, I'm fine then. If it says 2024, I am out of jail for the moment. It's still a pending bet that we don't have to wait to pay out until next year. I'm live enough that it'll happen. You know what? We'll do it. You know what? If it happens outside of a direct, like I said, they announced the date, right? I will literally do it during a podcast episode. We'll have Zach come back on. You guys will be happy because I won't get to talk at all. It'll be the quickest milk chugging contest of all time over here. Anyways,
and then I'll just pop one and be like, "What?"
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, he would too. He'll just do it because I like.
Let's field it though. Let's field it. Like, how are we feeling about a Prime 4 reveal next month?
Nope.
Reveal.
That's why I'm making the bet.
Unveil. Whatever.
They're going to end the direct with it.
I could see it being teased. I wouldn't say a reveal, but I could see it. I wouldn't say a full trailer. I'll say teased.
Notice how my thumb is diagonal.
That's my diagonal. That's where I'm at. I'm diagonal. Like I could see a teaser. I could not see a full trailer.
I'm 2 thumbs up.
If it was a full trailer, I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna freak out.
Because part of me think it's gonna be a cross-gen release coming out a month or two after the 3D Mario.
Swan song.
I think that September direct is all Mario with a few like B-tier Nintendo reveals, like a Donkey Kong reveal and another Fire Emblem reveal.
So I think it's interesting that you. So it almost sounds like you're implying like Donkey Kong would be a lesser reveal than Prime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, based off how long Nintendo's been supposedly developing and stuff, like
this has to be a god tier game, and I think DK needs to get out there because they got that theme park opening and they've been really.
But DK's always sold better. What are we?
But in terms of reveal, nobody's betting Ghost Peppers for DK. People will bet Ghost Peppers for Metroid.
Yeah, I'll bet Ghost Peppers for DK. I just don't think it's happening.
Yeah.
So what do we do? Do we just double this up now? It's a double bet.
I do think it's either Metroid or Donkey Kong.
If DK appears, I'm screwed and have to do it, even if Metroid's there.
No, you'll have to shave Donkey Kong's head.
Does anybody think we get...
No, we'll stick with just the Metroid for now. I don't know if I can throw another way for me to lose.
Does anybody think we get anything Tears of the Kingdom next month?
No.
Or anything Zelda in general?
Well,
Nothing?
yes, I do actually. I think so.
DLC?
So this is my perspective. One or the other. I mean, well, if the Jeff Grubb rumor is something Zelda's happening, I'm pretty sure that whoever told him that is not so dumb to think that Oracle of Ages and Seasons counts because they were already announced.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's that and or Tears of the Kingdom DLC. So my perspective on the Tears of the Kingdom DLC is that they'd want to have it come out closer to release of Switch 2. So if it's going to have a longer sort of like kind of lifespan, kind of like how we've seen with Pokemon and Splatoon, I can see if they announce it in the September Direct, we don't have to see that final expansion until late next year, right? Like the big adventure that they normally do, like that could come out second half of next year, which could fall into the launch window for Switch 2, but they could still announce the plans, maybe have like a nice little free update or something, and then wave one's like a first half of the year kind of thing. Especially like if it is, I think a lot of us are assuming the Switch 2 is coming out second half of 2024, right? Nintendo's going to want to start thinking of ways to kind of transition us over. And I'm kind of thinking how they're going to transition us over is Tears of the Kingdom DLC, Splatoon 3 DLC, Pokemon DLC, which that all seems to be kind of lining up, and a whole bunch of remasters and 1 or 2 new games. Maybe one's the Peach game, and maybe the other is Donkey Kong or maybe Metroid. But I'm kind of thinking maybe Donkey Kong. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I think, and another little thing to consider is that if Nintendo wants Tears of the Kingdom to win, like game of the year, I think it's good to announce DLC now to kind of reignite that hype and excitement, keep it going into the holidays. And we also
people
got
hate my opinion on this. There will be no DLC ever. 4 Tears of the Kingdom.
I don't entirely
I think they went
disagree.
straight to development of the next game.
I mean, in fairness to your point, Breath of the Wild DLC was announced before release, right? So
yeah,
But
also, I just think that when they released it, they already knew when the next system's coming, and I think they don't want to wait till like 3-4 years into that system. I think they just went straight into development of the next game. Plus, you saw Furukawa mention already. Yeah, I already have ideas for the next one. Something just get going.
Yeah, maybe. They could also do both.
I don't know. Hey, we're at the end of a system, so maybe.
I mean,
this is still a maybe.
Like
if this thing is 2025, I think I'm just done talking about rumors. I think it's just time to be done.
There's no way.
Getting burned with Pro and then get burned with 2024. Oh man.
Yeah, if that happened, oh man, yeah, that'd be a lot of fallout on that one.
I don't know how they. I mean, look, if that happened, then they better be announcing some sort of lineup next year for the end of a system I've never seen in my life. Like, it's 3D Mario. You thought that was a launch game? Nah. That's on this system.
That's our swan song.
That's our swan song. There it is. Holiday 3D Mario next year for Switch, baby.
And then a 1-year drought. 2025 is the driest year ever. And then 2026 blows our minds.
No, let's stop. No, we're not ending this like we're not ending this like Wii U, Color Splash, baby. Like, no, come on. Nintendo, you'd be smarter than that. You have momentum. Keep it going. Keep it going. You go one more holiday here because it's still selling pretty well. You're still selling, probably close to 15 million you predicted. Now let's get it out there before we're going to drop a load.
That's why I like my idea that the first half of 2024 is going to be that lull, which is going to be DLC, remasters, and 1 or 2 new games, which would still be pretty solid.
Peach game, Metroid Prime, baby.
Does anyone think we see more of the Peach game next month?
Yes.
Or is that we're going to wait?
100%. No, 100% we see it.
I think they teased it, so it would be. I think they're going to make a bigger deal out of it in this one. Yeah.
Follow-up question: have they ever announced anything that's not a game in a direct?
Yeah.
That's not like a hardware. Where I'm going with this is if you wanted something Zelda, we know that Zelda set is coming. Like
the Lego stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we at least know it's been worked on.
I mean,
officially.
They've announced like the Mario movie cast in a direct in a September
direct. From what
direct.
I know, that Zelda set is real and it's coming next year.
It is real. I know because I got copyright claimed for the Lego company over it.
Yeah. If it's not real, they wouldn't have. Yeah, they wouldn't have claimed it.
But that doesn't mean it's ever releasing, but it does mean that it is something they've worked on. Yeah.
They can drop that in a direct.
And they already do Mario, so it wouldn't be surprising.
Tears of the Kingdom? Go buy this Lego set for the Deku Tree. I just want the Zelda set, man. I know it's coming.
They can't just announce a Deku Tree, though. They'd have to be like more.
And Hyrule Castle. 7,000 piece Hyrule Castle.
They do a 7,000 piece Hyrule Castle. I will build it.
And it's like
you will see that shit right here behind me. Like
right there. When it releases, it'll probably be like a $500 set, and I'll just be here for hours and hours all day trying to build that thing.
It's like the creator sets like where it's 2 in 1, and you can have castle on the ground, or you can elevate it slightly up and make it the floating castle from Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, jeez.
Man.
Well, I would build a whole new set.
Cool things that'll never happen.
Castle. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the podcast. We can keep going on and on with these crazy ideas. And I'm laughing so much over here. My eyes are starting to water, which is.
Oh, one more idea.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
I gotta go to bed, Andre.
Just kidding. Until release Rob 2.0.
All right. Here we go. Rob 2.0. I want to thank everyone for being here. You can check out the Nintendo Prime podcast everywhere podcasts are heard. The audio version always comes up a day after the video version, which is live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central on the Nintendo Prime YouTube channel. We'll go around the room quick and let everyone tell people where they can find you. We'll start with our one and only primary Twitch streamer, Favlam. Where can they find you?
Well, like as Nintendo Prime said, you can find me on twitch.tv/Favlam. That's where I do most of my game shows, most of my verses, most of my variety content. We're doing a stream So there's versus tomorrow, but I think one that would relate to Nintendo stuff that I'm doing on Saturday is I'm going to do a Pigman stream, and every time a Pigman dies, I have to put on a new article of clothing. So I'm going to look like a giant sweater bear.
Oh
thing by the end of
boy,
it,
that's
probably.
going to be bad.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh.
gonna be crazy. I'm
Don't buy
excited,
any bosses,
especially because I'm
'cause you
starting to
lose
get to
80
closer
at
to
a
the end of the
time.
game. Huh? What's up?
Don't buy any bosses because you could lose like your entire army in one.
Oh,
fight.
I know.
Yeah. You might
He
run out
bought, he
of
bought
clothes.
70 pairs of socks just for that fight.
Yeah, I have a lot of really thin articles of clothing. I can kind of double up. Anyways, it's gonna be fun. It'll be good content, right? Content build.
It is
No, but
content, yeah.
if you were to follow anything of mine, go follow the Boost of You podcast. It's my podcast I've been curating. It is my baby. It's my child. We've started putting out gaming videos. So there's Boost of You Gaming. So there's like little 10-minute, 20-minute stream summaries. We do a stream of that every week. There's one on Friday. Yeah, go follow that channel. It's my passion project right now. And I've been editing it. And the editing for that's gotten a lot quicker. And soon I'm going to be uploading my own stuff on my own YouTube. So I'm excited.
Nice.
Anyways, that's what I do. That's me.
Nick with no K.
Oh,
What do you
that's
got going
me. Well, you can find me over on the Nerdiest podcast. That's my podcast that I have been doing for a while. We just put out an episode this week. We talk movies, TV shows, all that fun stuff. Games occasionally. I actually just recorded a video last weekend on the 5 games that influenced my life. So that video will be on YouTube soon-ish. So yeah, you can find me over there. You can also check me out personally on Twitter at NerdiestNick. I literally use Twitter for fun. It's not how it's supposed to be used, but that's how I use it. Is I use Twitter for fun.
He's eating all the time.
Yep.
We got Eric. Where can they find you? Just here every Wednesday?
I'm here. Well,
most Wednesdays.
Well,
usually used to be most
yeah,
Wednesdays.
yeah.
Hopefully
Oh,
again.
God,
Most
I don't
Wednesdays.
know what the hell's happening.
Life.
Yeah, I'm here.
Zach, where can they find you?
Switch Force on YouTube, daily news, daily content. You can also find me in the credits of Immortals of Avium if you want to play that.
Yes,
Fun game. That
Good
was
game.
I'm literally gonna screenshot when I beat it, just so I can.
Yeah, it's been a cool experience. I'm excited to continue on with the studios. But yeah, Switch Force as always. People always ask me what's going to happen when the Switch 2 comes out. It'll still be
well, it'll be
Trying to
perfect.
Switch 2
Switch Force is perfect.
Yeah,
We're gonna throw a Switch 2 Force. Like,
yeah.
Switch Force works
Yep.
fine.
Also, there are Nintendo content creators that are just based off an old system. Right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he'd be like Dreamcast guy, just
There
a
you
system
go.
that never took off, but never
People
talk
still know.
Dreamcast. Talk everything
Yeah.
else. Andres, where can they find you?
Andres Restart. I also do daily Nintendo content, even when I'm on vacation. So
How I feel.
yeah,
Yeah, when I go on the cruise next year, it will be still daily content while I'm
yeah. I think what I'm
sipping
gonna do
Mai
is that
Tais.
I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to do it because what's funny is I've actually been doing a good job lately of having my content scheduled ahead of time, which I haven't been
Good.
good with. And now I've been like, oh, all right, 2:00 Eastern, like that's been like my time. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. But the only reason I think I've been on the ball with this is because I actually am procrastinating because I need to be making extra content for when I'm gone. So I'm always
Funny how
disappointed
that
in myself.
happens.
Yeah.
Well, I'm preparing, and now I'm more consistent, and I'm more ahead, and then it's because I'm actually worried about when I'm not going to be here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So when I come back, that'll be the real test. Am I actually going to be as consistent as I am now?
I'll tell you now, coming back off of vacation, it's hard sometimes to get right back into that consistency because you're like, dude, I was just chilling. I was just relaxing.
Well,
And now it's
when you
back
love
to
what you
business.
do, though.
Maxon.
Yeah, I love what I do. But I will admit, it was when I came back off the last vacation I took last year, it was a little hard getting back into the flow because the flow of my daily life, it was I get to sleep in, I get to relax, I get to go stick my feet in the ocean, I get to say hi to the dolphins. It was just nice, relax. I want to eat. They bring the food to me. Like to go from being pampered back to kids screaming and I gotta get a video out. It was a holy crud. I you know what? Sometimes getting a taste of what rich people just get to have always isn't always good. I don't think. A little hard on my mentality to go back to the life that doesn't involve that. But I do love what I do, which is why I was still making content even when I was gone last time. So, but it was just hard to get back into the regular flow of the daily life and being at home and dealing with all that while trying to get content out. But I love what I do. This is just a lot of fun. And I'm fortunate enough that I'm one of the few that get to do it for a living. So it's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet gig. Being your own boss, setting your own hours, and gushing about Nintendo. Does it get better? Yeah. Does it get better? Nope. I don't even know if it gets better. Maybe if you're an athlete or something, I don't know. And you just got a guaranteed $300 million contract. You know what? You say that though. I mean, how much did XQC get paid?
Free, though.
Yeah, I was to say. Or you could be a streamer and get a $100 million contract. Yeah. Anywho.
Sorry, get paid to not react to things. Sorry, I had to say that. All right. We'll leave that one alone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye, everybody.
I really need to work on getting an outro.